Ladies and gentlemen, the First Lady of Country Music, Loretta Lynn.
Go buy a tub of clothesline, go buy pots and pans. I'm gonna take a Greyhound bus as further as I can. Ain't gonna wash no windows, ain't gonna scrub no floors. When you realize I'm gonna hear you roar, and you'll say, hey, Loretta, I love you more than my already said. Hey, Loretta, don't leave me alone. Hey, Loretta, where am I gonna treat you better? Buy you brand new overalls if you only come back home. I work my fingers to the bone, we don't hardly speak. All I ever get is a little kiss about once a week. You can feed the chickens, you can milk the cow. This woman's liberation, honey, is gonna start right now. And you'll say, hey, Loretta, I love you more than I already said. Hey, Loretta, don't leave me alone. Hey, Loretta, where am I gonna treat you better? Buy you brand new overalls if you only come back home. I'll dress up like a movie star and pretty up my hair. No one here is gonna know what I'll be doing there. I'll be swinging from the chandelier, bouncing off the wall. Instead of loving just one man, I'm going to love them all. You'll say, hey, Loretta, I love you more than I already said. Hey, Loretta, don't leave me alone. Hey, Loretta, where am I gonna treat you better? Buy you brand new overalls if you only come back home. And hello, everybody, and welcome to the show tonight. And we would ask you to holler out whatever you wanted to hear. Honey, I said I would ask you, but it wouldn't do any good for me to ask you because the little conductor back here don't know my songs. He only knows 3, and he said, Loretta, if you sing any more than that, you've had it. So see, I won't be able to sing what you holler out. But when it's all over with, come up here and I'll sing it from right over here at the side of the stage. And this little girl would walk a country mile to find her a good old slow-talking country boy. I said, a country boy, I'm about as old-fashioned as I can be, so I hope you like what you see. If you're looking at me, you're looking at country. You don't see no city when you look at me, 'cause the country is all I am. I love running barefooted through the old cornfields, and I love that country ham. Well, you say I'm a man just to fit your plans, but does a barnyard shovel fit your hand? If your eyes are on me, you're looking at country, oh, Bobby. Well, this your country is a little green, but there's a whole lot of country that you ain't seen. I'll show you around if you show me a wedding band. I said a wedding band. When it comes to love, well, I know about that. Country folks all know where it's at. If you're looking at me, you're looking at country. You don't see no city when you look at me, 'cause the country is all I am. I love running barefooted through the old cornfields, and I love that country ham. Well, you say I'm a man just to fit your plans, but does a barnyard shovel fit your hand? If your eyes are on me, you're looking at Thank you. Thank you very much. Right now, I'd like to sing a song that I wrote. And I'd like to tell you a little story about this song before I go into it. I was working in St. Louis, Missouri. And before the show started, this young girl, about 20, 21 years old, come backstage. And she says, Loretta, she was crying. And she says, Loretta, my husband has been stepping out on me. And she says, I tried to get my husband to bring me to this show today. And he wouldn't bring me. And said he's sitting out there in the third row with his girlfriend. Well, I kind of looked down at this little girl, and she didn't wear no makeup, and she was not fat. She was just kind of pleasingly plump. Really not, what do you call it, just not fat. Let's just put it that way. And I looked at the girl that was sitting out there with her husband, and she really looked cheap. She had a lot of makeup on her face, and I thought, well, my goodness, how could he do a thing like this? So I looked down at the little girl, and I said, honey, she ain't woman enough to take your man. I went to my dressing room, and I wrote it right there. You come to tell me something. You say I ought to know that he don't love me anymore, and I'll have to let him go. You say you're gonna take him, oh, but I don't think you can, 'cause you ain't woman enough to take my man. A woman like you, there's dime a dozen you could buy anywhere. For you to get to him, I'd have to move over, and I'm gonna stand right here. It'll be over my dead body, so get out while you can, 'cause you ain't woman enough to take my man. I'll pick it out there, Dave. Everybody have a good time. Sometimes a man's caught looking at things that he don't need. He took a second look at you, but he's in love with me. Well, I don't know where that leaves you, but I know where I stand. And you ain't woman enough to take my man. A woman like you, there's dime a dozen you can buy anywhere. For you to get to him, I'd have to move over, and I'm gonna stand right here. It'll be over my dead body, so get out while you can, 'cause you ain't woman enough to take my man. No, you ain't woman enough to take my man. I usually have a song for every story. I'll tell you, a story for every song. That's the way I should put it, right? When I first went to Nashville, no, there ain't one on the way. I just gained 5 pounds. You cool it back there. That don't beat anything I ever seen. You didn't have to bring that up. When I first went to Nashville, Tennessee, the first girl singer I met was Patsy Cline, and we become the best of friends. In '63, Patsy was killed in an airplane crash. I never sang any of her songs after that, and when somebody from the audience would holler out a Patsy Cline number, it would mess up my whole show. Well, last year I went in the recording studio, and I did an album of Patsy's greatest hits. And I like to never got this thing cut. And I still have a hard time singing them, but I'm going to sing them for you anyway. I fall to pieces each time I see you again. I midnight, out in the moonlight, just like we used to do. I'm always walking after midnight, searching for you. Crazy, crazy for feeling so lonely. I'm crazy, crazy for feeling so blue. I knew you'd love me as long as you wanted, and then someday you'll leave me for somebody new. Worry, why do I let myself worry? Wondering what in this world did I do? Crazy for thinking that my love could hold you. I'm crazy for trying and crazy for crying, and I'm crazy for loving you. Crazy for thinking that my love could hold you. I'm crazy for trying and crazy for crying, and I'm crazy for loving you. Busted flat in Baton Rouge, headed for the train, feeling nearly faded as my jeans. Bobby thumbed a diesel down just before it rained, took us all the way to New Orleans. I took my old harp out of my dirty red bandana and was going sad while Bobby sang the blues. With them windshield wipers all the time, I was holding Bobby's hand in mine. We sang every song that driver knew. Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. Nothing ain't worth nothing, but it's free. Feeling good was easy, Lord, when Bobby sang the blues. Feeling good was good enough for me. Good enough for me and Bobby McGee. La 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 la, me and Bobby McGee. La 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 la, me and Bobby McGee. From the coalmines of Kentucky to the California sun, Bobby shared the secrets of my soul. Standing right beside me, Lord, through everything I'd done. Every night he kept me from the cold. Then somewhere in Salinas, Lord, I let him slip away, searching for a home I hope to find. I dread all my tomorrows for a single yesterday, holding Bobby's body close to mine. Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. Nothing ain't worth nothing, but it's free. Feeling good was easy, Lord, when Bobby sang the blues. Feeling good was good enough for me. Good enough for me and Bobby McGee. I promised you all some fiddling, didn't I? Let her go, boy. Every time I close my eyes, so I'm going out now and I'm looking for you somewhere tonight. I want you out of my head, back in my bed before the morning sun comes up. I can't stand another night without you holding me tight. How I miss your love and touch. Gonna search everywhere that you might be. When I find you, I'm bringing you home with me. I want you out of my head and back in my bed before the morning comes. Well, I might find somebody new to share my misery, but no other man can do what you can when it comes to loving me. And I don't want nobody to say that I was a fool for being true. I won't be satisfied till you're back in my arms and I'm loving you. I want you out of my head, back in my bed before the morning sun comes up. I can't stand another night without you holding me tight. How I miss your love and touch. Gonna search everywhere that you might be. When I find you, I'm bringing you home with me. I want you out of my head and back in my bed before the morning comes. I want you out of my head and back in my bed before the morning comes. Well, I was born to coal miner's daughter in a cabin on a hill in Butcher Hollow. We were poor, but we had love. That's the one thing that Daddy made sure of. He shoveled coal to make a poor man's dollar. How many of you in here tonight know what a holler is? Oh, you do know what a holler is, huh? Great. How many more know what a holler is? You know what one is? I'm going to tell you what a holler is. Holler is a little canyon that comes down between two hills. Down between these two hills is a little stream of water. On the sides of the hills is where we build our cabins. And if there's any level ground, that's where we put our gardens. And the way Butcher Holler got its name is like this. My grandmother was a butcher. My grandfather was a web. And friends, there just so happened to be a lot more butchers than there were webs. And the butchers won out. And that's how it got its name. Butcher Holler. Well, I was born to coal miner's daughter in a cabin on a hill in Butcher Holler. We were poor, but we had love. one thing that Daddy made sure of. He shoveled coal to make a poor man's dollar. My daddy worked all night in the Vandler coal mines, all day long in the field of hoeing corn. Mommy rocked the babies at night and read the Bible by the coal oil light. Everything would start all over come break of morn. Daddy loved and raised their kids on a miner's pay. Mommy scrubbed our clothes on a washboard every day. Why, I've seen her fingers bleed to complain there was no need. She'd smile in Mommy's understanding way. In the summertime we didn't have shoes to wear, but in the wintertime we'd all get a brand new pair. From a mail order catalog, money made from selling a hog, Daddy always managed to get the money somewhere. Yeah, I'm proud to be a coal miner's daughter. I remember well the well where I drew water. The work we done was hard, and I would sleep 'cause we were taught. I never thought of ever leaving Butcher Hollow. Well, a lot of things have changed since the way back then, and it's so good to be back home again. Not much left but the floors, nothing lives here anymore, except for memories of a coal miner's daughter. I know every one of you out there tonight feel the same way about your daddy as I did about my daddy. My daddy died in '59. I didn't start singing till '61, so Daddy never did get to hear his coal miner's daughter sing on stage. I know all of you have a lot of memories of your daddy. I got a lot of memories of my daddy, too. And I'd like to share just a couple of my memories with you, if you don't mind. I'd like to share the one memory that I remember the most and I love the most. There's a memory of in the wintertime when the snow was on the ground. The wind was blowing the snow through the cracks of the house. Daddy had sat in front of the old fireplace, and he'd rock 2 and 3 kids at one time. And most of the time, I was one of them kids. In fact, Daddy rocked me right up till I got married. I married very young. I kind of walked out of my daddy's arms into my husband's arms. Then there were times that were quite funny, memories that I remember of Daddy, and I think one of the funniest ones was Daddy never called me Loretta. It was always Loretta. And I was the only girl till I was 9 years old. I was kind of spoiled. I was Daddy's pet. I got into everything I was big enough to get into. I climbed trees. I jumped fences. Daddy would always say to me, "Now, Loretta, if you climb that tree and you fall out and get hurt, you're going to get whooped." Just as sure as I climbed a tree and I fell out and got hurt, Daddy'd pick me up and spank me before he'd ever look to see if I was dead or alive. They just don't make them like our daddies anymore, do they? There just ain't no way. I was a much more than a baby. I thought he was a bear. The way my daddy carried me around. They said I learned to walk while holding on to just one finger on the hand of a man that stands 6'3". Not old enough to understand the meaning of depression. Just something people talked about a lot. My daddy wasn't one to try to make no big impression. Just one heck of a man that worked for what he got. They don't make me like my daddy anymore. what you had born in you, like the will to live and a dream of better times. Daddy never took a handout with pinto beans and bacon, but he worked to keep the wolf back from the door. And it only proves one thing to me: when folks start belly aching, they don't make them like my daddy anymore. They don't make me like my daddy anymore. Guess they've thrown away the patterns through the years. In a great big land of freedom, at a time we really need them, they don't make them like my daddy anymore. They don't make them like my daddy anymore. I know you're sitting out there right now saying to yourself, how in the world did she ever get out of Butcher Holler? Am I right? That's what I thought. This is how I got out of Butcher Holler. I went to school in a little one-room schoolhouse. Right in the middle of the schoolroom sat a great big old iron pot-belly stove. And during the summertime, some of the kids was playing in the schoolhouse yard, and they had broke out some of the window panes, and it was really getting cold. The teacher says, girls, we're going to have to come up with something to raise some money to put these window panes back in the schoolhouse. Well, we come up with a pie supper. How many of you have ever been to a pie supper? All right. How many of you don't know what a pie supper is? Well, I'm fixing to tell you. She says, now, girls, all of you that are big enough, you bake your own pie. And whoever the boy is that buys your pie can help you eat this pie and walk you home. Right then, I started getting ready for the big pie supper. We had our pie supper 1 week later. The young fellow that she got the bit off the pies I'd never met. He'd just gotten out of the army. He looked like a little toy soldier. Looked to be about 16 or 17, but of course we know he had to be much older than that. He bid the pies off that night, and when it come to my pie, he bought it. After the pie supper was over with, we sat down to eat our pie. I'd made a bad mistake. I'd baked my pie with salt instead of sugar. 13 years old, my first pie, and I'd baked on that thing for a week. Well, he walked me home. That was on the 10th day of December. On the 25th day of December, he bought me a little rubber doll for Christmas. On the 10th day of January, we got married. We moved all the way out of Butcher Holler, clear out to the state of Washington. The next year for Christmas, I got a real doll. And the next year for Christmas, I got another. And the next year, another one. And the next year, by the time I was 17, I had 4. And then they started coming in pairs. And there's been one on the way ever since. France, and Jackie's seen in a discotheque doing a brand new dance, and the White House social season she'll be glittering and gay. But here in Edmonton the rain is a-falling, the faucet is a-dripping, and the kids are bawling. One of them is toddling and one is a-crawling, and one's on the way. $1 million pact, and Debbie's here working up a brand new act, and the TV showing newlyweds a real fun game to play. But here in Topeka, the screen doors are banging, the coffee's boiling over, and the wash needs a hanging. One wants a cookie and one wants a changing, and one's on the way. You're bringing a few old army buddies home? You're calling from a bar? Get away from that. No, not you, honey. I was talking to the baby. Wait a minute, honey, the doorbell. Honey, could you stop at the market and... Hello? Hello? Well, I'll be. The girls in New York City, they all march for women's liberty. shows a modern way to live. The pill may change the world tomorrow, but meanwhile, today, here in Edmonton, the flies are buzzing. The dog is a-barking and the floor needs a scrubbing. One needs a spanking and one needs a hugging, Lord. One's on the way. You wind me and I'm me when I was your girl. Promise if I'd be your wife, you'd show me the world. All I've seen of this old world is a bed and a doctor bill. I'm tying down your brooder house, 'cause now I've got the pill. It's all maternity dress I've got going in the garbage. 'Cause I'm where I'm from now on, won't take up so much yardage. Mini skirt, hot pink, and a few little fancy frills. Yeah, I'm making up for all those years since I've got the pill. Oh, but Daddy, don't you worry now, 'cause Mama's got the pill. One evening, my husband come home from work and he said, Loretta, I've been listening to the radio, and there's girl singers that's out there singing on the radio that's making money that can't sing any better than you can. I said, I think I'm going to try to do something with your singing. Well, I really didn't know what he had in mind, because he'd never heard me sing, except walking in the house and catching me rocking the babies to sleep. He said, there's a little country band that plays not too far from here on Saturday night. Said they play for a little country dance. Says Saturday night we'll go listen to them. Tickle me to death, because with 4 kids you don't get to go nowhere. Saturday night come along and he got me a babysitter. My first big night out. My first big dance. We got to the dance hall and it got just a little too much to drink. Got a little bit loud. Went up to the bandstand and hollered, hey, next to Kitty Wells, I've got one of the greatest country girl singers here in the world. And said, I want you to let her get up and sing. And friends, I took off running. I heard one of the guys in the band say, we don't let nobody get up and sing here. Well, as the night went on, it got a little worse, and a little worse, and a little worse. Aggravated every one of them to death. Finally, one of them looked down at him and said, now listen, if this girl can sing as good as you say she can, you bring her over Wednesday night. Said, we tape a half-hour country music show, and we play it back on the radio on Saturday. Said, well, we'll put her right on the radio. They figured he'd forget it. Lord, I was hoping so. He didn't. Wednesday night come along when he come in from work and looked at me and said, are you ready? And I said, no. He said, get that way. And I did. We went over to the musician's home and they come to the door. We knocked on the door and they come to the door and looked down at us and looked like they said to themselves, gee, what have we got ourselves into? Well, one of them looked at me and said, what do you want to sing? I only knew one song all the way through. And I said, there he goes. He says, what key do you do that in? And I said, I don't know. He hit a key and I hung on. The next morning, they come over at my house and they hired me to sing with them every Saturday night for $5. I knew I was going to get rich. I saved all my money up and I bought me a white hat, white boots, a black skirt with big long white fringe, a black shirt with big old red roses. Annie Oakley would have been ashamed to have stood up beside of me. I strapped my guitar around my neck and I headed for Nashville, Tennessee. I'm sure if my husband would have ever dreamed, the music business would have taken us away from each other so much, so long at a time, he'd have never asked me to sing that first song. And I know you read articles every now and then where he gets out, gets a little too much to drink, but he gets lonely. He stays home and does all the farming, takes care of all the kids problems, or tries to, and if you've got kids, you know that's impossible. There ain't no way. So when he gets lonesome, he gets drunk. And he gets lonesome every night. So one day I wrote him a song. Called him up about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I said, honey, I wrote you a song. Which I made a mistake by calling him up at that time of night. He said, well, what is it? And I said, don't come home with drinking with loving on your mind. That's what it is. You thought that I'd be waiting up when you came home last night. You've been out with all the boys and you ended up half-tight. Liquor and love, they just don't mix. Leave the bottle or me behind. And don't come home a drinking with loving on your mind. No, don't come home a drinking with loving on your mind. Just stay out there on the town and see what you can find. 'Cause if you want that kind of love, well, you don't need none of mine. So don't come home a drinking with loving on your mind. No, don't come home a drinking with loving on your mind. In a cabin on a hill in Butcher Hollow. We were poor, but we had love. That's the one thing that Daddy made sure of. He shoveled coal to make a poor man's dollar. In a cabin on a hill in Butcher Hollow. We were poor, but we had love. That's the one thing that Daddy made sure of. He shoveled coal to make a poor man's dollar. I'm proud to be a coal miner's daughter. I'm proud to be a coal miner's
Army should cross the line of control and seize all of Pakistani-held Kashmir. Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee, who didn't go to Washington but was briefed by telephone by President Clinton, won't go that far. But with his own BJP party, demanding Pakistan be punished, he can't afford to take too soft a line. India has claimed throughout that Pakistan was behind the fighting that began 8 weeks ago. The Pakistani government, which denied having any control over Islamic guerrillas, has yet to explain how it's able to orchestrate their withdrawal from Indian-held territory.
Protestants in Northern Ireland have been angered by the banning of another of their traditional marches, this time along the Lower Ormeau Road in Belfast. They're also unhappy with an appeal by British Prime Minister Tony Blair to accept the peace deal worked out last week. The Unionist leadership is reluctant to accept Sinn Féin into a proposed power-sharing government before the IRA has decommissioned its weapons.
Everybody's trying to bend his ear. But if Ulster Unionist leader David Trimble was a man in haste today, he's been in no hurry to accept the Northern Ireland peace deal. Tony Blair's been pleading with Northern Ireland's leaders not to throw away the best chance for peace in a generation. And in the Commons, he clearly had Unionists in his sights as he urged that Sinn Féin should be put to the test on arms decommissioning.
I understand perfectly well why people aren't going to accept undertakings, words, statements, any of the rest of it. If we do not put this agreement to the test and find out literally within days whether it's going to happen, we will never know. And so we will be in the situation where the Republicans will say, well, we might have if we'd been given the chance, and the Unionists will be left without the knowledge as to whether they ever would or not.
Mr Trimble warned that scrapping Ulster's power-sharing executive if Sinn Féin didn't persuade the IRA to hand in its arms would be giving a veto to the paramilitaries.
He knows too that in asking us to include Sinn Féin in an executive in advance of decommissioning, he's asking us to sacrifice the democratic principle to expediency. And he's asking us to take a gamble with an ineffective and unfair safety net.
The Prime Minister promised the Unionists that if there is no IRA arms handover, then the parties will be free to form an executive excluding Sinn Féin. But neither side is prepared to take the other's words on trust, and the Ulster Unionists don't yet accept that the guarantees Mr Blair has written in are sufficient to justify the leap of faith he's asking them to make.
Magistrates in France have completed their investigation into the car crash that killed Princess Diana and her companion Dodi Fayed almost 2 years ago. The couple and their French driver died after leaving the Ritz Hotel in Paris when their hired car crashed in a tunnel. The report is now with the official prosecutor, who has 3 months to decide whether to take any further action. Photographers who followed the car could face charges of failing to provide assistance to the injured. Veteran Zimbabwean guerrilla leader and politician Joshua Nkomo has been buried in front of tens of thousands of mourners near the capital Harare. Nkomo, who died of cancer last week at the age of 83, formed the first black political movement in what was then Rhodesia, but never realised his ambition of becoming the country's first black leader. That fell to Robert Mugabe, who, while lavishing praise on his former deputy, had many differences with him, especially during a rebellion in Nkomo's native Matabeleland. The United Nations has launched a new attack on world poverty. Secretary-General Kofi Annan has warned of a new slowdown in world economic growth and called on the international community to do more.
Poverty in Djibouti on the Horn of Africa. But it could be almost anywhere on the African continent or in any of the world's developing countries. Kofi Annan says half the world's 6 billion population is mired in poverty, trying to make a living out of $3 a day.
AIDS, crime and conflict entrench poverty still further, while poverty itself fuels the spread of disease and disruption.
The Secretary-General is concerned that assistance to developing nations is at its lowest level in years, and that debtor nations are spiralling even further into the poverty trap.
That is why developing countries must find relief from the debt that is stifling their development and in some cases consuming more than half of their annual budget.
But poverty is not necessarily exclusive to developing nations. In the United States, for example, more than 35 million people live below the official poverty line. Responding to criticism that he's failed to tackle the problems of those left behind by America's economic boom, Bill Clinton has ventured off the beaten track, visiting the caravan parks and crumbling houses of Hazard, Kentucky, in a 7-state poverty tour.
If we, with the most prosperous economy in our lifetimes, cannot make a commitment to take every person along with us into the 21st century, we will have failed to meet a moral obligation.
The President told the people of Hazard about his so-called New Markets initiative to boost opportunities in rural areas. The $15 billion program offers technical assistance, loan guarantees and tax credits, although it's yet to be approved by Congress.
At the other end of the financial spectrum, the Australian share market ended the day with a marginal rise in lacklustre trade. In Tokyo, the Nikkei closed 0.5% lower, while Wall Street was closed for the Independence Day holiday. The Australian dollar was up against all the currencies on the screen. Floods are again a problem on China's Yangtze River. More than 150 people have died and another 150,000 have been forced to flee their homes. Some areas have had 2 weeks of almost continuous rainfall and more is expected. Torrential rain has left runways underwater at Shanghai Airport, and keepers in the city's zoo have had to rescue animals in danger of drowning. A claim tonight that Australia's world-famous Great Barrier Reef could be almost dead within 30 years because of rising sea temperatures. Greenpeace says unless there's a cutback on fossil fuels that cause global warming, the reef will be destroyed, along with billions of dollars in tourism and fishing revenue.
This, warns Greenpeace, is what the rest of the Great Barrier Reef could look like within 30 years. The coral, bleached of colour, and its ability to sustain the fragile ecosystem that depends on it, rapidly dwindling.
If the corals that are on a reef bleach and get sick and die, then you're losing the major organism that makes up a reef. Now, reefs are the home to thousands of different species of organisms, fish, invertebrates and so on, and once you've lost those habitats, you lose those organisms as well.
Greenpeace has collated climate change models and 20 years of studies on the effects of climate change on coral reefs to reach its conclusions. Ironically, for the tropical wonderland that is the Great Barrier Reef, warming sea temperatures are to blame, caused by our continuing use of fossil fuels. But it's not just the Great Barrier Reef that's under threat. All coral reefs are in jeopardy.
What we need to be doing if we are going to protect the world's coral reefs is phasing out of that oil, coal and gas and moving into clean energy technologies, breaking our addiction to fossil fuels, and by doing that we will help save the world's coral reefs.
The destruction of coral reefs will have severe economic consequences, warns Greenpeace, particularly for Australia. The reefs are the breeding grounds for 90% of commercial fish, and the loss from ecotourism would be a major disaster for our economy.
Tomorrow's weather. Brisbane mostly fine 21, Sydney fine 20, Canberra also fine 13, Hobart a shower or 2 11, Melbourne fine 14, Adelaide a shower or 2 17, Perth partly cloudy 17, and for Darwin a fine day with a top of 31. In our region, Bangkok 33, Hong Kong 30 and Tokyo 25, and around the world Jerusalem 30, New York 35 and Vancouver 18. And that's the world this Tuesday. Mary Costakides for the World News Team. Our next bulletin at 9:30. We'll leave you in Cuba's famous Tropicana nightclub, which has been closed for the first time since the 1950s, to allow a local director to finish his latest movie, a romance between a cabaret dancer and a shop assistant. Good night.
After the break, all the international sports action in Toyota World Sports. Next.
Singapore Airlines' new first class. Now, more than ever, a great way to fly.
Wednesday on Dateline. Fijians have just re-elected the government that was deposed in 1987.
That I'm Prime Minister, not for any one community. I'm for everybody.
Chowdhury's promises of social and economic reform appear unachievable.
Now the people are beginning to realize that it won't be as rosy as they said it would be.
And if the government can't deliver...
blood will flow this country.
I don't think that we have too bright a future.
Fiji, Back to the Future on Dateline, 8:30 Wednesday. 8 o'clock Friday, the return of internationally acclaimed vegetarian chef Korma Dasa. Enjoy a smorgasbord of unique recipes derived from years of research and travel. Korma offers a clear step-by-step guide to healthy, delicious dishes that are easy to make and are guaranteed to taste.
Sounds delicious, huh?
More great vegetarian dishes of the world.
Let's get cooking.
A new series beginning Friday at 8.
They're coming. Manchester United witness the red-hot Devils down under against Australia's Socceroos in 2 spectacular matches. Melbourne MCG July 15, tickets from Ticketmaster. Sydney Stadium Australia July 18, tickets from Ticketek. Proudly presented to you by Shark. Simply the best. Manchester United versus the Socceroos. Tickets available now.
Tonight on Toyota World Sports, thrills and spills on day 3 of the Tour de France. Australia's Cadel Evans on the verge of becoming the king of mountain bikes. And in Mexico, women tread in uncharted waters. This is Toyota World Sports. Good evening. Also tonight, more from the Copa America in Paraguay, a world water speed record set in Germany, and later our regular feature on women in sport. The first Australian cyclist, Stuart O'Grady, has jumped to 3rd place overall following an incident-packed second stage of the Tour de France. Belgian sprinter Tom Stales took line honours ahead of new race leader Jan Kirsipu from Estonia. Australian riders O'Grady, Henk Vogels and Patrick Jonker came in with the main bunch, but Robbie McEwen and Jay Sweet finished well off the pace after being caught up in a nasty accident.
Lance Armstrong in yellow held a 7-second lead over Switzerland's Alex Zülle heading into day 3 of the Tour de France. The 176-kilometre stage from Chalon to Saint-Nazaire was tailor-made for sprinters. Estonia's Jan Kirsipu picked up an 18-second time bonus after winning all 3 intermediate sprints. It meant Kirsipu had overtaken Armstrong by 2 seconds. Dutch star Michael Bogert suffered an early fall, and nearly 1/3 of the 178 riders follow suit on this narrow stretch, in what may be considered the defining moment of this year's race. The causeway is covered by water for all but 4 hours. The passage was clear, but the hopes of several pre-race favourites sank regardless. Giro d'Italia champion Ivan Gotti and Zülle, who started the stage 2nd overall, were severely affected. They, along with Bogert, finished a demoralising 6 minutes behind the leading group, as did Bogert's Rabobank teammate, Australia's own Robbie McEwen.
I got caught in the crash first, had a flat tyre, rode on it for about 15k, got it changed, never came back.
At the front, the sprinters jostled for position in a thrilling dash to the line.
This is a
sprint royale to end the walls. Loretta is here as well. As they come up now, Cipollini has lost it.
Italy's Mario Cipollini, in fact, settled for third place. Belgium's Tom Steels won the stage ahead of Cursipu, who moves 14 seconds clear of Armstrong in the general classification. Tomorrow's stage covers almost 200 kilometres, and again the sprinters are expected to dominate.
So Estonia's Jan Kirsipu overtakes Lance Armstrong in the overall standings. He leads by 14 seconds, with Stuart O'Grady in third place, a further 8 seconds back. Fellow Australians Patrick Jonker and Henk Vogels also feature among the top 30 riders. And for the insight into today's action, Mike Tomalaris is joined by former Tour stage winner Neil Stevens.
Well, surprisingly, a very eventful day, stage 2 of the Tour de France, and joining me now is Neil Stevens. Steve-O, a very eventful day, like I say, a lot of wind, a lot of accidents and a lot of breaks in the pack.
Yeah, well, what was originally going to be a transition stage with a sprint finish turned out to be quite an eventful stage. There was firstly the crash that Jay Sweet was involved in at kilometre 34. There was a big crash on beside the ocean there, which led on to the break of the day. A lot of time was won, a lot of time was lost, and it's really turned the general classification upside down.
What about Michael Bugert? He was one of the favourites before this race. He's way behind now after that accident, and all eyes now are on perhaps Patrick Jonker to lead Rabobank.
Yeah, well, in theory, Michael Bogart was the leader of the Rabobank team, one of the strongest teams here in the Tour de France. That's bad for the Dutchies, that's good for us. Patrick Jonker has now got the weight of the team behind him. He's got a lot of pressure on him now, and I think once we get to the mountains, he'll be ready to turn up the gas.
Steve, if I can ask you, you're on the outside now looking in. Do you like what you see as far as the Tour de France is concerned?
I think, yeah, the Tour de France is great this year. It's got a new light. We've got 5 Aussies here. Stuart O'Grady, once again, is up there fighting for the yellow jersey. He's up there for stage wins. And I think we've got to keep in mind that he's fighting also for the green jersey. I'm really enjoying my first tour on this side of the barriers, and let's see what the Aussies can do.
And what do you expect from here until the finish line in Paris in 2.5 weeks' time?
I think there's going to be another week or 10 days of good sprint finishing. It's good. We've got Jay Sweet, Robbie McEwen and Stuart O'Grady up there. Henk Vogels is doing his job as well. And the Tour's going to really have a big turnaround halfway through the race when we get to the Alps, then onto the Pyrenees. And then there's a bit of a chance for the sprinters when we get up towards Paris.
And just finally, Steve-O, are the Australians coming to you for advice, perhaps, especially the greener riders like Jay Sweet? Are they coming to you for attention?
Yeah, Jay Sweet, I've been on the phone with him for not only in the Tour de France, basically throughout the year in my role with the Australian Institute of Sport. I keep in contact with them. I try to sort out any problems they may have, team contracts, training programs and all that sort of stuff. And I'm trying to do as much as I can in the build-up towards Sydney 2000.
Good on you, Neil Stevens. Well, there you have it, day 3 of the Tour de France, stage 2 out of the way. Hope you can join us tomorrow at 6 p.m. when the tour continues.
Neil Stevens with Mike Tomalaris. And on a darker note, another 2 track cyclists with scholarships at the AIS have tested positive for banned substances. Cycling Australia were unavailable for comment today. Meantime, in Melbourne, a leading international expert on drugs in sport believes the recent IOC bribery scandals have put back the advancement of Sydney's drug testing program by 2 years. A lack of funding and delays have also placed in doubt procedures for EPO testing and the detection of growth hormones at next year's Olympic Games.
And that was a tragedy, I think. And now it has to wait for the whole scandal to fully get behind us and to start over.
So we've lost 6 months effectively. Or the IOC's lost 6 months.
They've lost a couple of years.
Australian Cadel Evans has all but wrapped up this year's Mountain Bike World Cup title after placing second in Canada. With only one more round remaining, Evans needs only to finish in the top 3 placings to guarantee his first ever title, while in the women's event, Norway's Gunn Rita Dale blitzed the rest of the field by more than 2 minutes.
Swirling, icy winds in Alberta, Canada set the scene for the 7th round of the Mountain Bike World Cup. Russia's Pavel Cherkasov reveling in the freezing conditions. But he soon fell behind the pace, Tamas Freshnek deciding it would be faster to walk through the mud than ride through it. The Swiss, who is searching for his 4th World Cup title, went on to win the race. He even found time for a swan dive. An exhausted Cadel Evans crossed the line over a minute later. Evans' 2nd place virtually locking up the championship with 1 round remaining. And in the 25-kilometre women's event, local Mani Doncero proved her home advantage counted for little. But this was to be Gunrita Dahle's race, the Norwegian finishing ahead of overall points leader Alison Seidor, who, like 95 other competitors, was treated for hypothermia. Seidor will defend her world title in September in Belgium.
Give each other a wash. Back home, an Olympics Minister Michael Knight was inspecting the construction site of the Olympic water polo venue today, the Ryde Aquatic Leisure Centre. Built in 2 stages at a cost of $38 million, the complex will host 14 days of water polo action, with its doors opening to the general public in March next year. After the site inspection, Knight took the opportunity to justify his decision to ban American and Japanese bands from the opening ceremony.
We're very happy to say sorry to those kids. We're sorry for the effort that they've put in, and that's why we want to try and give them the best possible remaining Olympic experience.
At the Copa America in Paraguay, the hosts have qualified for the quarterfinals after their 1-0 win this morning. It took until the 88th minute to break the deadlock. Peru and Paraguay were already through to the last 8 after Bolivia and Japan drew 1-1 in the early game.
Bolivia required all 3 points for any hope of reaching the Copa America quarterfinals, while Japan were already eliminated after suffering 2 consecutive defeats. The Asians received a special invitation to take part in these South American championships, and if not for this performance, Japan would have gone home empty-handed. The Bolivians struck first, though, through Erwin Sanchez. Japan hit back from the penalty spot with less than 20 minutes remaining. Brazilian-born Wagner Lopez securing a 1-1 draw. Japan's only point in 3 matches, knocking Bolivia out of the tournament. That result meant host nation Paraguay and Peru had qualified for the quarterfinals, but this match decided who would finish first in Group A. Paraguay had the only chance of the first half. It fell to Miguel Benitez. The home side pressed forward, and Santa Cruz went agonizingly close to the opening goal. Benitez triggered an astonishing sequence of missed chances following this effort. The next arrived at the other end, Andres Mendoza blasting over from close range. Both teams failed to take control in the slippery conditions. It appeared Paraguay would finally score, but somehow Peru survived, and the match seemingly destined for a draw. But just when you least expect it, Santa Cruz slipped in behind the Peruvian defense with 3 minutes to play. The 1-0 victory lifting Paraguay above Peru into first place in the final group standings.
A high-ranking FIFA official has hinted that the 5th-place team in Asia will play a European country for the final berth in the 2002 World Cup finals. This decision could avert a threatened boycott by the Asian Football Confederation, who were originally only given 4 spots, including the co-hosts Japan and South Korea. In the United States, meanwhile, the US women's soccer team has been mobbed by fans in Los Angeles after earning a spot in the World Cup final. With the tournament attracting the attention of the media and non-soccer lovers, Sunday's clash with China at Pasadena's Rose Bowl is expected to attract a crowd of at least 75,000. Meantime, in Spain's Canary Islands, Englishman Carl Woodward has become the first man or woman to record a 400-yard drive, or 364 metres. The 49-year-old showed awesome power, usually expected of big hitters Tiger Woods and John Daly. Woodward has held the record for the longest drive for the last 9 years, but he finally achieved his dream, hitting a 400-yard plus drive. 408 yards, or 373 metres, was the official distance. His message: catch me if you can. 1993 World Powerboat champions Kaflan Harib and Mohammed Al Gait have shattered the world water speed record at the German Grand Prix. The dynamic duo hit an average speed of 224 kilometres an hour to record their first win of the season.
In perfect skies and calm waters, Sayed Altea and Felix Sorales were hoping to take advantage of their second consecutive pole position, but the Spirit of Norway crew had other ideas. The defending world champions blasted into the lead and never looked back as they tore up the 120 nautical mile course. But there proved to be bigger fish in the sea. Mohammed El Gaid and Kafan Harif releasing the handbrake and throttling Victory 4 into top gear. After losing the lead, Spirit of Norway saw their fortunes and their $6,000 propeller sink to the depths of the Oss Sea. The United Arab Emirates pairing pushing Victory 4 all the way to the finish line. The duo will be looking for their second consecutive championship victory come July 18 at the Norwegian Grand Prix. And at the Wakeboard Championships, American Sean Watson stunned the crowd with a rare feat of aerial artistry.
Oh my God!
The sport has been likened to snowboarding on water, and with good reason. Thrills and spills always high on the agenda. For the record, the USA's Parks Bonifay proved the day's greatest exponent. World Cup Tour organisers will now be hoping for sunny skies in England next week.
For the first time in Mexico's history, women have been given the chance to compete in the sport of boxing. The female athletes are hoping that, like their male compatriots, the sport will be their ticket out of poverty.
After years of boxing underground, women in Mexico can now legally step into the ring. The female boxers who once risked their lives fighting without any medical supervision will now get mandatory medical examinations, including pregnancy tests. They will also enjoy equal pay, receiving $250 per fight. 1,000 spectators showed their interest at the first fight in downtown Mexico City. Some, though, were less impressed than others. But to the approval of the crowd, a mother of two came out the winner. There's still a long road ahead as organisers try to convince fans that women have the technique and the physique to box.
And that brings us to our regular Tuesday feature, Sportswoman. Tonight we're off to follow the women's windsurfing circuit. But first, some news from the Sydney Paralympics headquarters.
They came from far and wide for what is one of the most successful events of its kind in the world. Since 1983, the Dublin Women's Mini Marathon has raised more than £30 million for charity, an achievement which has seen it become one of the great success stories in Irish sport. This year, a world record 37,000 women and a few imposters entered the 10K run, which brings the city to a standstill. As the start time approached, thousands of weekend joggers were joined by elite athletes, among them Catherine McKiernan, who was looking to complete a hat trick. While one of the 2,000 stewards practiced his flag-waving technique, the wheelchair entrants commenced their race. Minutes later, the remainder of the 37,000 field were on their way. Within a matter of seconds, Fitzwilliam Street became a sea of humanity. Since winning the 1997 mini-marathon, Catherine McKiernan has gone on to become one of the world's best. She won the prestigious London Marathon in 1998, but an injured Achilles tendon prevented the Irish superstar from defending that title this year. The mini-marathon was an important step on her comeback trail. And Catherine didn't disappoint her legion of fans. Spurred on by their support, she sprinted to the finish line.
99 champion, 33 minutes and 14 seconds. She's done it yet again. The first time we've ever had 3 winners in a row.
Finishing second, 17 seconds behind the winner, was 21-year-old Kenyan Madeline Chador. The battle for third was close, with Maria McCambridge just edging out the previous winner, Teresa Duffy. While the remainder of the field crossed the line at staggered intervals, Catherine McKiernan revealed that her goal now is to win the Chicago Marathon in October. However, the biggest winners of the day were the many charities that benefited. This year, the mini-marathon raised £4.5 million, bringing the total raised over the past 17 years to a staggering £35 million. sportswoman profiles some of the champions of the world windsurfing circuit. First up is Sandra Gubelman, a veteran of 10 years who somehow manages to have a life outside of the sport.
Until last year, I windsurfed full-time, but now I work a little bit in an advertising company at the moment. So just to find another thing to do after I quit windsurfing. I kind of like the lifestyle, but I'm not really a typical windsurf person. I kind of like to walk in the middle somewhere.
Sandra's experience on the circuit means that she no longer sees it as one big party, a state of mind that she shares with another veteran of the sport, Jutta Müller.
I'm 30 years old. When I came in, I was 20, so I kind of see it in a different light now. For me, like, it's kind of a circus. I get along with everybody good, but my best friend I have here is Jutta, and it's actually good for me because she kind of thinks the same like me, and so at least I have somebody a little bit closer.
Despite all her experience, Sandra finds the conditions on Pozo Beach on Gran Canaria especially unpredictable.
Here especially, it's so hard. You're just happy when the day is over and you're still alive and everything's still in place. Because here in these conditions, you're so out of control. But when you do good, then you feel really kind of proud of yourself. Wow, I did it. That's great, you know. It's challenging.
With some retirements recently, it looks as though the old guard are making way for the next generation of women's windsurfing.
Last year, I thought, oh, there are really no new young girls coming. But here in Pozo, I see now so many young girls and doing really, really well in waves, and they're just going for it. And I just hope they don't hurt themselves because they're really crazy. The two twin sisters, Ibaya and Daida Moreno, they have really big potential because they just don't know any fear at all.
Speaking of the Spanish twins, their windsurfing career started only 3 years ago, but they've already made huge waves.
I think they've learned a lot in a very short time. They're just radical. Those two girls, they go nuts.
Identical twins, but which is which? If we can't tell, imagine how hard it is for the judges. However, the girls do admit to being tempted by the old switcheroony.
Okay, I think that personalities are not the same. When I was a child, I was running on the street, playing with my friends, always there on the beach, you know, surfing. Now with other friends, international friends. Now I'm trying push-up, but it's difficult.
And for the Morenos, windsurfing's a family affair.
But we don't have the help of my parents. We don't go surfing, you know. They give us money to buy myself.
So what does the future hold?
My dream is to be one of the girls, the best in the world.
Australian Jane Seaman may be a youngster of the PWA World Tours, but she's no newcomer to wave competition.
I've been doing the Australian circuit probably for about the last 5 years. I just compete against all the guys in the waves. We don't have very many women who compete, so I just compete against them, and that helps to lift my standard. The guys get a little bit upset sometimes when I beat them. Sometimes I'll stop doing the circuit, you know, for a few competitions, but they usually get over it.
Jane has other ways of showing the guys up.
I'm actually not too bad at pool. My claim to fame is I've beaten Jason Polentau at pool. I think it's just good enough just seeing the guys' faces when you can beat them.
But touring's not all fun and games.
I guess some bits that are harder just coming from Australia. You know, when you come into places like Germany that I just have no clue about, you know, and there's no one around back home that knows how to get there either, that knows what they're like. So that can be a little bit hard. But other than that, you know, it's no different. You just jump on a plane. It just costs you a bit more than everyone else. I'd definitely like to continue doing the world tour. Unfortunately, no one gives me any money to do that. I'm just using up all the savings that I had from working full-time as a market research consultant. from seeing the girls this year, especially watching the twins going, I'll definitely be going home over summer and just trying a lot more different moves, and then hopefully I'll be able to come back next year and actually do a lot more different things.
And that's it for this week. We'll leave you with some more amazing windsurfing pictures, and we look forward to seeing you next week on Sportswoman.
More Sportswoman next week. The 20th World Student Games are underway in Palma de Mallorca in Spain. The Games, only dwarfed by the Olympics in the number of participants, attracted 6,000 athletes in 12 sports, including Olympic medalists from the 1996 Atlanta Games.
World European champion and two-time Atlanta medalist Slavina Khokina continued her winning streak to take the individual women's gold medal after leading Russia to team gold. Khokina produced an impressive floor routine to beat compatriot Elena Prudanova. The pair are expected to vie for the 4 individual discipline gold medals. Khokina the clear favourite on both the bars and floor. The Japanese men's gymnastics team produced the biggest upset of the Games so far by grabbing the team's gold medal with 170.750 points. The Russians were heavily favoured but had to settle for silver. Nikolai Krukov finished second in the individual overall after an impressive performance on the pommel horse. And finally, in the men's basketball competition, some got a little hot under the collar. One Mexican player taking exception to a referee's decision in their match against Spain.
Tomorrow night on Toyota World Sports, our special feature looks at the increasing number of top-flight international sports coaches who now call Australia home. They include the acknowledged guru of archery, Kisik Lee, now the head coach at the Australian Institute of Sport in Canberra.
Once a minnow in world archery, the Australians have found Mr. Lee has given them some bite.
Our first competitors at the World Indoor Championships were the Koreans, and I think they're a little bit scared, and Mr. Lee's taught us to say Musabji, which is are you scared? And when we first came up against them, they knew that we'd been coached by Mr. Lee, and they could see our technique had changed, and I think that did have a big impact on the final result.
Yes, that report from Liz Deep-Jones tomorrow night on Toyota World Sports. And that's the programme for tonight. Pardon me, on behalf of the team, I'm Liz Murray. Good night.
Already up into 3rd place. In 4th place, right on his wheel, is Eric Zabel.
They come on down, Timberlady has lost it on the ride. It has been taken by Daniela Nardello, the man from Mape, who has come from nowhere.
Stay ahead of the World Game. For the latest international and local results, scores and news from the world of football, dial the SBS Soccer hotline on 1900 922 333. That's 1900 922 333.
A fork in Australia, next.
Tonight on The Cutting Edge.
On the 27th of September 1976, Maria Emilia, Jorge and their 18-month-old daughter Mariana were abducted.
An incredible story of a grandmother's 16-year quest to relocate her stolen grandchild.
Y yo le digo, qué linda canción. Y Mariana levantó los ojos y dije, es Mariana.
After positive DNA testing, the truth came with the terrible price of rejection.
No hay otro delito más grave que yo conozca, más profundo, con mayor daño social.
Mariana became the symbol of all the stolen children from a period of collaborative governmental oppression.
Es mucho peor que el homicidio.
For the Eyes of Mariana, 8:30 tonight.
On Insight,
You have all the joy and none of the real responsibility.
They're healthier, living longer, and they want more out of life.
We're not really in the process of growing old gracefully.
And the lawmakers just aren't keeping pace.
They should extend the definition of family to include the role of grandparents.
Their new role, Insight, 8:30 Thursday.
The Royal Flying Doctor Service is always there, bringing the best possible care to those in need. You too can be part of it, caring for Australians through a simple donation to the Flying Doctors. Call us now.
For over 400 years, my family has always made pasta on a Wednesday. It all started so long ago that no one can remember why we do it. But every Wednesday, we only eat fresh pasta. With a fresh taste of Latina pasta, you can always find a new and exciting way to serve it. So why don't you join the Medicis and make every Wednesday a Latina fresh pasta day? Of course, it doesn't mean that you can't have fresh pasta on other days.
Here's what Australia's leading motoring journalists had to say after testing the new Magna 3.5 V6.
It has a lovely ride, strong engine, accurate steering with crisp turn-in, and is superbly quiet. Mitsubishi has a head kicker. Mitsubishi has built a V8 killer.
Magna 3.5 V6 feels like a V8. See it at your Mitsubishi dealer now.
It is Mitsubishi.
Stoneham taken out wide into Clark. Can he kick three into the quarter? Oh, well done.
Good work.
Centering ball. Lowther with the sit. Oh!
He's hurt himself too.
Ronnie Burns has got it. Sits one, beats another. And a terrific effort by Burns just offline.
Well done, both those young men, Clark and Lowther. He got up high, but he's just picking himself up now. Yeah, here's Clark. He's in trouble. Stop. Back. Look. Where am I going to go? Sees the movement. But watch Daniel Lowther here, but watch him land. Watch him land.
Ooh.
Right on his back.
Oh.
Just a bit winded.
Yeah, physiotherapists love those ones. And probably surgeons as well. McGregor in his first game. Take a real big pat on the back, son. And what a pass to Jarman.
Great pass. Seems like this boy McGregor's been around for years, Graham, doesn't it? His skill level, his pose about him, just everything. Great kick.
Crows match committee would be loving it. Be very heartened because there was a little bit of criticism that maybe young Matthew Pavlich, who's the star in the SNFL this year, could have been taken. But we see why now they've taken Burton, and a big kick from Jarman. Has he kicked that?
He kicked that.
Well, that's like the one he kicked at the G last week, 50 metres on the boundary. That wasn't quite 50, but at the into the breeze end of the ground, that's the equivalent of.
Well, he has kicked this beautifully, and the big cheer is for Matthew Liptak coming off, and Matt Connell coming on.
Well, just a phenomenal goal by Darren Jarman. The Crows have kicked 21. Jarman at last is, well, he's got level. He's kicked 3 goals, 3. He's kicked 2 in this last quarter, and that was a perler into the breeze. And a loud roar went up as Matthew Liptak went to the bench, just playing his 3rd game this season. He's kicked 4 goals. What a day he's had, the doctor. Oh, Jarman's got it again. He could finish up with half a dozen yet. What a kick! McLeod! Jarman a goal!
He loved it too. You just can't keep him down, can you? When people have doubts on him and they think that he's having a bad day, all of a sudden pops up, he still kicks his 4, and 2 of the famous goals he's just kicked.
Well, he's been taken from the ground twice today by the match committee. And there are people who have doubts sometimes, but he always, when the pressure is on, produces his best. And moments of magic like that cannot be produced by just any footballer. It takes somebody special. He's beautifully balanced, sees the goals, get plenty of foot on the ball. Just watch his reaction here. He loves it.
Yeah. Arms to go up.
Waiting. It's bouncing. Andy McLeod shepherding it. It's waiting. Oh, we missed him.
Yeah. He wasn't sure whether it was going to be Andy McLeod's goal from half a metre or his from 50. Oh, that was just fantastic. He's kicked 3 in the last quarter, Jars. What a roost.
Graham.
Has kicked it into the stratosphere. Barnes into the corridor, and Clark for his 3rd this quarter. He's got it.
Good boy. David Clark. Good on, that's his 5th game, and he hasn't kicked a goal before for the Cats. He's now kicked 3 in a quarter.
And no doubt a proud dad will be watching over there in Victoria, down Geelong way. Gee, David, well done. He's not bad. David, number 2.
He's got one of the numbers in his, hasn't he? David Clark, number 5, was.
It's a bit of a test for me. I'm not sure now.
Somebody will ring, somebody will tell.
Yes. Well, get him to ring Cornsey. Oh, good mark.
Yeah, Drew, that was a great running goal by Clark, but a magnificent handball by Barnes to set it up.
Gee, it's been a funny old quarter. The Cats have kicked 4 goals, but the Crows have kicked 5 into the breeze. 3 of them to Jarman, who had been half ordinary to 3/4 time and been benched twice by the coach. And if, in fact, you're right, Cornsey, and it's got something to do with the contract, the length of it and the size of it, I think he might have added a couple of zeros in the last quarter. Oh, pay him what he wants, I reckon.
The problem is he's 32. That's I guess, one of the difficulties in these negotiations.
Throw in. You're about to speak, Curls? Size of the contract for Jars? No, he's put on the censorship button. McLeod. And in this rollick that the Crows have had today, strangely, McLeod hasn't featured at all. He hasn't scored even a point. Tyson on the turn, 35 metres. It is another one. Yep. 3 goals for James Tyson.
Spent a fair bit of the game on the bench. Came on for Tyson Edwards, and that's a bit of a mystery too. But he's done beautifully off that half-forward flank, so everything Malcolm Blight's done today has worked in his favour. Just some of that old Blight magic starting to re-emerge, Johnny.
Certainly is, Graham, and you can just see the discipline by the Crows players here. The ball was on the other side of the ground, the top of the square. I knew they had the runners up there, Vardy, Tyson. So just easy turnaround, sees the goals from about 20 metres out. It's a beautiful goal.
Well, there's just under 3 minutes left, and the Crows have added 6 goals won in this last quarter into the breeze. Nobody has kicked that well, going right to left in this game. Burton dashes out of the middle. Jarman, not a mark, but on the bounce. Maybe set this one down for another goal. Look at this! Look at this! Oh, yes! Yes! Top goal!
Yeah. Oh, that's magnificent. And the crowd erupts. When you want to see football played at its best, when you want to see poetry in motion, just watch this man. Tom Harley's played well on him, but he controls it.
Yeah.
Stop, ball, sees the goals. Magnificent football.
Arms up. There's your arms, Graham. Your arms are up.
Oh, look how he beats this youngster. And he had done so well. Jarman had kicked 1 goal 3 to 3/4 time. He's kicked 4 straight in the last quarter, including this.
And that's why people come to the football. It's been at times a scrappy game, but I think, Drew, you've made the point. There's been occasions when the skills have been magnificent.
Oh, just open the wallet and pay him what he wants, Crows. Riley out of the middle to Bamford, a late inclusion. He drops a sitter. It spills back. Arnott, good pass, and right in front, Scholl. There's still 2 minutes remaining, and in this quarter it has been 7 goals to 4, 11 goals in this quarter, so it might be a pretty long one. Well, it's been going 28.5 minutes already. Scholl, 45 out right in front. And he gets on the score sheet.
Yes, but again, it's to the end where the Geelong cheer squad is not. And there's no noise whatsoever. He's had a pretty tough day. There's no doubt about it. He's been in defence. He's been on the wing, and now he's gone forward. But it's a nice finish.
A fairly good game, boys, hasn't it? Even though it's a 10-goal difference, but 38 goals scored in one day, and it's been some fantastic goals, hasn't it, Drew?
Yep, and 38 goals, and there have been 19 different goal kickers. Adelaide have 10, and even Geelong have 9. And 155, I think, is the highest score for the year, shared by the Crows and the Cats. And the Crows might just about top it here in the last couple of minutes. Scholl to Burns. McGrath, the acting captain. Oh, he'd love a goal, but poor kick.
It was a great attack on the ball by Mark Rashido. He had to come backwards and sideways across the pack, got to the ball, but wasn't balanced enough to take it. Good courage, but well scouted by the Geelong players, just not able to finish off with a goal.
So waiting for Rod Jamieson to bring the ball into play.
And Rod Jamison's been very good these last 4 weeks too for the Crows.
Hart. Well, this is a bit of a high-scoring game with Adelaide topping the 1.5 century and the Cats not far short of a century. A minute remaining in the game. Stevens goes short to Hart. Hart working the outer boundary line well for Jamieson. Defenders came up and kicked goals early in the game. James kicks it low. Jarman again! Now this bloke is going to kick 5 goals in a quarter on a day when he was being beaten or ordinary to three-quarter time.
Well, Tom Harley would have to have been pleased with his debut for Geelong. He's contained Darren Jarman to one goal in 3 quarters. Jarman's come back on and just erupted. Of course, he kicked 5 goals straight in that last quarter of the 1997 grand final against St Kilda. Can he do it today?
Unfortunately, he's done to young Harley what he did to Shanahan that day. And this would be 5 straight in the last quarter for Darren Jarman. Never in doubt.
6. Thanks very much.
There is no justice in football sometimes.
It's cruel.
But when you've got a champion player, and Darren Jarman is a champion player, you cannot relax. You cannot give them an inch. A kick from Bretty James, who's been tremendous. Inconspicuous, I might add. But his kick was where Jarman needed it. And he was good enough to get that body down, the arms and the hands under it. 5 goals in the quarter, 6 for the game.
People behind the goals, but Jarman are absolutely going berserk here.
Well, there's just seconds remaining, so unfortunately there will be no more to the Jarman magic in this last quarter. There's the siren. Well done, the Crows. Well, their only win in the last 6 weeks was against Collingwood, and that was by 5 points. So they've flogged the Cats today, and smiles from the youngster Harley and the champ Jarman. That was good to see.
Fantastic scene. I think even Darren Jarman would have said to him what a great game he did, and maybe gave him a little bit an advice of what's happening in the big league, and I reckon he did a pretty good job up to three-quarter time. But good luck to him.
He did a fantastic job, and Jasmine, the siren, when I was watching him, they just brought up, tapped him on the back, said well done, and give the kids some encouragement. Well, an interesting game of football. There was times when the Crows were absolutely dominant, but Geelong bounced back at them, could not find any clean movement through their half-forward line. And in the end, a very, very easy victory to the Crows. Malcolm Blight only had his moments today.
Of course, would Blighty be patting himself on the back for benching Jarman a couple of times, giving him a needle and seeing what he did in the last quarter?
Look, I'd really love to be able to ask that question because you can make observations and you can even criticise, but you don't know what the coach has got in mind. You don't know what his ulterior motive, and it may just be. It may just be what Darren Jarman needed. Neil Curley is down on the ground. Curls.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. Well, Kimmy, you've been here all year. Today, there was a different approach by the whole team.
Yeah, look, it's been a pretty solid week on the track. A lot of talking, and you know, Malcolm stressed that before the game, put up on the board words, and words is a big thing. We had to come out here and try and show it. And, you know, we made a few mistakes early, I think, but we got back on top. And you know, they kicked a few goals, easy goals in that third quarter, but to our credit, we got back on top.
You're still looking for your elusive goal?
Yeah, yeah, look, tried hard. Get a bit nervous around the goals there, Curls, you know how it is. Will you bag me, will you?
Darren Jarman, bit quiet early, but let it go in the last quarter.
Turned it on the last quarter was amazing. Just watching him, you know, walk, showing some composure, and that's what I've got to do, try and show a little bit of poise. You can learn from the master. He's awesome.
Great win, all the best. Back to you, Drew.
Yeah, thanks, Curls. And they're waiting for the interviewee to go and join the group. And Jarman, hands on hips, broad smile. Wouldn't you be happy with that? He's kicked 6 goals, 3, and at three-quarter time he had 1 goal, 3. Unbelievable.
Drew just said, I think he's just telling the boys how he did it, side step. Probably did a somersault and all sorts of things he would have told them.
And it's probably taken a bit of the shine away from Nathan Bassett, who kicked a great goal in the first quarter, coming up from full-back. And, boys, that is the highest score of the season. The Crows have kicked 25-9, and it beats the previous highest score of the season by 4 points, shared by the Crows and the Cats.
Well, it's going to give them tremendous encouragement. There's been a lot of pressure on at the club. There's been a lot of pressure here in Adelaide. Is the season really been thrown away or given away last week? We're not sure. There's still hope there. I don't think Malcolm Blight would have given the season away. Mark Rashudo led the team very well. Kenny McGregor, Matty Connell started so well, had a fantastic first half. Benched after that. Ian Downs played at centre-half forward. And again, a forlorn-looking Tyson Edwards there. He was taken off the ground for some reason too. Andrew McLeod a quiet one, and Matty Liptak alongside him. What a game he played.
Well, I thought Edwards was playing the best game I'd ever seen him play. He kicked 3 goals, 1 in each quarter to three-quarter time, and was then benched. So obviously I know nothing, and Blighty knows his men. But I did think that Jarman was a bit harshly done by when he was benched a couple of times, whatever the reason.
Well, it could have been Drew, but certainly paid off and finished up with 6 goals. And I think it's a credit to him and also to Malcolm Blight for taking him off.
So the final score, 25-9, 159 to 14-12, 96.
Imagine a range of refrigerators, intelligent enough to maintain a constant temperature to each shelf, that cooled everything faster for optimum food quality, kept fruit and vegetables fresher even longer, could freeze food faster than ever before, and were one of the most energy efficient on the market. Active Smart, from Fisher & Paykel. The innovators.
Last year in Australia, this many women, just like you and me, died from cervical cancer. Most, however, had a perfectly good excuse.
Look, I don't have time for a pap smear right now. I don't have any symptoms. I know I should go.
Oh, I'm too old.
I've only ever had the one partner.
Some women find the idea of a pap smear embarrassing and uncomfortable, but one pap smear every 2 years will help pick up any early changes.
All over. I'll see you again in
2 years.
Up to 90% of cases are now preventable. So all women aged over 18 who have ever had sex should have a pap smear every 2 years. Because if one thing could be worse than dying of cervical cancer...
I'm too busy to go to the doctor.
It's knowing how easily it could have been prevented. Cervical cancer. Don't make excuses. Make an appointment. Authorised by Chris Ellison for the Commonwealth Government, Parliament House, Canberra.
Well, the moment's arrived. We're just about ready now for Heat 5 of the women's 400 metres. As we see Veron over in lane 1, next to her Pet Hero in 2. The next 4 fastest times go through to the quarterfinals. And here she is, the Australian Jessica Colton from Gundagai in lane 5. It's going to be a huge boost for her, isn't it? I mean, it's going to lift her early and hopefully carry her over the line. That support that she's going to get.
The wonderful times she's run in the lead up to this. This really is a culmination of so much hard work. There'll be so many people wishing her well here today.
Go, girl.
Well, they work a lifetime for this. There's no tomorrow. It's this moment.
Well, Bruce, I really don't think it matters where she comes in this race. She's fought really hard and you know she's going to be running her heart out.
Here we go. This is it.
Come and enjoy South Australia's Environmental Tourism Award winner,
the Australian Arid Lands Botanic Garden. Wander through the 80 hectares of walking tracks. Learn and understand arid land plants. Watch them change from season to season, year by year. View the bird and native wildlife. Study the plant specimens. Hire the WMC Herbarium meeting room. Browse in the gift shop. The interpretive displays. Or just relax in the Blue Bush Cafe. Experience the peace, tranquility, and unique ecology by taking a closer look. Visit and enjoy the Australian Arid Lands Botanic Garden. Port Augusta, open 7 days.
Well, the highest score of the season, and they won by 63 points, kicking 25-9 to 14 goals 12. And the goal kickers led again by, you guessed it, Darren Jarman. He had 1 to 3-quarter time and kicked 5 straight in the last quarter. Liptak best on ground with 4, Vardy also 4. And let's have a look at the league ladder now and see whether in fact Adelaide are gone for the season. I say no. 6 and 8, a game outside in percentage, and so the miracle may not have been averted for Malcolm Blight. Good night.
This AFL match brought to you by SA Brewing and Johnson's Home Improvements.
Mum, it's Jenny. I need some advice. I think she and Alex are having their first argument.
So, who's winning?
Heidi's golf clubs. I used to.
You did that?
Then we walked and talked.
Family.
We still walk when we need to work things out.
Isn't it about time?
Maybe Alex and I need to take a little walk.
From the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Yeah.
This week on Cross Country, getting to know the difference between a king snapper and a rosy jobfish with the help from the Ultimate Seafood Handbook. Then a new age has just started for the growers of 2 of our major commodities, grains and wool.
For the people of this land, Cross Country.
Hello and welcome as we begin the 11th year of Cross Country programs. We started in 1989, which was our La Nina rainfall year. Now we're back in one again. But on Thursday, there was an even bigger point in history when the former Australian Wheat Board completed its massive transformation from a statutory body into a private company. It's now AWB Limited, Australia's biggest agribusiness. Ian Baker reports the new company has been built on historic foundations to serve Australia's 45,000 grain growers.
With memories of the Great Depression still vivid, AWB was set up under Defence powers in World War II to stabilise the industry.
I can just remember when I was a little fella, the talk that used to go on about the marketing in these areas, and you know, you'd have wheat and they were talking, you know, 1 6 a bushel, and then all of a sudden it had dropped to a shilling a bushel for no reason at all. And that was what really led to the formation of the Wheat Board and the pooling system, which evened it out.
As well as stabilising returns to growers, over the years as the single-desk exporter of Australian wheat, AWB captured markets in the Middle East, Asia and Indonesia.
And has probably been one of the major factors for the expansion of the industry in Australia.
Across half a century, the growers' marketer pushed positive change. New varieties, new products, new facilities, and quality monitoring every step of the way. With customer focus stronger than any other grain marketing organisation, the company is a world leader in grain marketing. AWB Limited exports wheat on behalf of Australian growers through a single desk system, a one-stop shop, the sole export marketer of Australian wheat.
While we're a large exporter of wheat, we're not a large producer of wheat on the worldwide scale. And with a single exporter, you have a board or a body that can assemble a whole heap of a particular type of grain from over any part of Australia to a market. If you have, say, 10 different marketers doing that, at some stage they've got to get together to do it, so why not just have the wheat board?
We return more money to growers' pockets than any other marketing system in the world. I can assure you the American system, which we seem to be compared with as the one that we should be moving to, a so-called deregulated system, delivers nothing like the benefits to the individual farmers that this particular system does.
Almost universally approved by growers, the single desk system is under constant attack from international competitors who want it scrapped. However, federal law guarantees the system for at least another 4 years. AWB Limited says consistency and reliable supply are its prime goals. Through national pooling, it segregates, blends and develops a range of wheat grades suitable for a variety of specific end uses. It works very closely with customers and even their end users to ensure that Australia supplies precisely what's wanted. And the organisation has been remarkably successful at packaging Australian grain as a premium product, often at premium price, to a point where it has more than 100 customers in over 50 countries. Building on this, from July 1, the fully privatised grower-owned company, structured to meet the realities of business in the new century and the rules of world trade.
Up until now, we've had somewhat what I would call constraints, or we've been answerable to government, being a statutory body, and now we're free.
Free to diversify into commercial operations and provide financial services to growers.
Such aspects as the provision of finance for working capital, advanced wheat payments, and an initial set of risk management products such as the underwriting of the wheat crop.
Different arrangements for a new century, but AWB Limited insists it will continue to be vitally concerned with building export markets, relaying the right signals to growers and maintaining quality.
Coming up next, July the 1st was a red letter day for the wool stockpile, but what does this mean for growers?
You are an Australian, and we are the oil company who serves Australia, with a distributor network that covers just about every square mile of this great country. Professional people.
Well, he's from something called the Home Office, and he reckons that after all the trouble you've caused, he don't want you back anymore, thanks. So, as long as I adopt you, all legal and properly, looks like I'm stuck with you, doesn't it?
Oh, Mr. Tom! Mrs. Little, can I see Zach? Only I've got some really great news to tell him.
Of course you can, William. He's upstairs, packing.
Packing?
Yes. You see, he's just had some news himself. Not very good news in his case, I'm afraid.
Got a phone call from my mum. They bombed the docks, and my dad was there. I'm sure he'll be alright, of course. Take more than a German bomb to stop him. Only, I have to go and see him. Just in case he's...
Are they going to bomb us, Mr. Tom?
saving them for London, I expect.
This is the BBC Home Service. Here is the news. Last night's mass air raid on London is estimated to have been the heaviest of the war so far. At least 400 people have been killed and 1,400 seriously injured. Fires are still burning all over the city, and many homes in the East End have been razed to the ground. The fire and the rescue...
From Zach, then?
Afraid not.
That poor child.
This 7 News Sport Update is proudly brought to you by Visa.
Hello, Chris Barth with the 7 Sport Update. St George Illawarra has beaten the Melbourne Storm 28-16 in their clash tonight at Olympic Park. The chief, Newcastle Knights captain Paul Harrigan, has announced he's retiring from rugby league. And Pat Rafter is through to the next round of the French Open tennis after beating Nicolas Escudé in 4 sets. And that's all the sports news to now.
There's a chance to win Sydney 2000 Olympic Games tickets. There's the bill, perfect for a Visa payment. Oh no, she's going for the checkbook. A wasted opportunity. Look at the disappointment on those faces behind her. Let's see that again. There's the wallet, and oh so close. But no, she went for the checkbook. What a shame. Use your Visa card and you're eligible to win tickets to the Sydney 2000 Olympic Games.
They're round circles. I normally play hockey with them because I get my spoon and I go boom, boom, boom. It looks like fluffy white cloud. Potato on the bottom. Yeah. And mince on the top. No. Mincemeat on bottom. Maybe because it's a pie. And maybe shepherds like potato.
Kids love beef mince, and being high in iron, it loves them too.
I think state football is the pinnacle in a player's career.
Bring together some of the very best from the two states.
Now, this promises to be a huge clash. I expect one hell of a game of footy. Look at him. Marvellous to watch.
He's got it. I just can't imagine why anyone wouldn't want to be involved in it.
Make sure you don't miss the last Coca-Cola AFL State of Origin clash this century. State of Origin football. One more time with passion.
Every song tells a story. 35 original classics, every song a memory. There's Guitar Man, You're a Friend of Mine. Year of the Cat, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. American Pie. Brown-Eyed Girl, Cats in the Cradle, Piano Man. Romeo and Juliet, Layla. And Radar Love. Remember the time, the place, the music. Every song tells a story. In store now.
$7 million chance of a lifetime returns Sunday night at 7. Then all next week at 5:30, there's 5 more chances to win big. Call this number and $1 million chance of a lifetime could be yours. Starts Sunday at 7.
After a 2-year wait, the big state footy game that gives the South Aussies a chance to really kick the Vicks, and our cameras will be there. We'll talk to the players, the coaches, the winners, the losers. South Australia versus Victoria on 7 Nightly News.
Next.
My name is Michael Caine. Not many people know that.
One of Britain's best-loved movie stars with Parkinson, next on 7.
Stop pushing. Hello.
William.
Has anybody any idea where William is today?
No, Mrs. Hartridge.
William? Is William all right, Mr. Oakley?
Well, he's still very upset, of course, but... Why?
Only that he didn't turn up at school today. Or rather, he did. Then...
Where have you been? You all right?
Yeah.
Up you go and wash then. Tea will be on the table in 5 minutes.
I'm not hungry.
Can we have a word, Doctor?
Of course, Tom. Come in.
Dr. Little sent it round for you. Thought you might like to learn to ride it. Sure Zach would have wanted you to have it. Now, you just come with me for a minute. Come on. You think you're the only person who ever lost anybody? It's happening to people all over. This very minute. And all because some maniac wants to rule the world. And how do you think I felt, eh, when it happened to me? Not just my wife I lost, you know. She was my best pal as well. My very best. And my lad. Me not even here. Except I didn't lose them, you see. Not really. Because they're still here. Inside here. And always will be. Just like Zach will be for you. In every little thing you'll ever remember about him. And that is something that nobody can ever take away from you. Nobody. Ever.
Nothing's wrong, William. It's just... Well, I had to tell somebody. See, I've just had this telegram about my David, and he isn't dead after all. He's alive. A prisoner of war. Isn't that wonderful, William? Isn't that absolutely wonderful?
Yes, Mrs. Artridge, really wonderful.
Right.
8:30 Saturday night. Don't miss Seven's action-packed adventure movie. For the first time on television, Jackie Chan's Rumble in the Bronx. 8:30 Saturday night on Channel 7.
Now you've looked at this program, look for the sign.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
And never again the oppression of one by another.
Germans on both sides of the wall ended this memorable week by shouting, "The wall must go."
Just after midday, the tanks rolled out of the square. A lone young man stood in front of the first one.
From that moment on, I knew that it was going to be okay. They were going to get me out.
I have a dream that one day she's just in front of the Aussie. I think she's got them. Bethany hanging on. Yes, she's done it.
Every word you say, every game you play, every night you stay, I'll be watching you. Every single day, I'll be watching you.
Truscott Hi-Fi hope you enjoy the following program.
Thank you very much. Thank you. On the show tonight, one of my favorite guests, someone I interviewed on the very first series of the Parkinson's Show way back when. Since then, things have changed, but things haven't changed with Michael Caine. He was a star then, and he is now, and I'll be talking to him later. My first guest also has what it takes to remain a star, particularly in the fickle world of television comedy. He made his television debut in 1985. He's been travelling upwards and onwards ever since. His list of characters would fill a jumbo jet. Their sayings have been absorbed into our language. Apart from being a funny man, he's a sexy one, too. The readers of a... Don't laugh, lady. The readers of a woman's magazine recently voted him one of Britain's most fanciable men. Ladies and gentlemen, Harry Enfield. Fanciable,
Yeah,
Harry
a very good introduction, that, particularly the last bit.
You like that, do you?
Yeah, it's true.
It is true. I mean, did you...
It is true.
What kind of reaction have you had?
Well, it was excellent. I was in Cosmo, and a makeup woman I was working with came in and said, "Did you see you're the 33rd most handsome man in England?" So I read it, and I was, and who's number 30, 32, 31 and everything? It was just boring, ugly people like Robbie Williams and George Clooney and people. So I thought, oh, well, they're obviously a bit silly, but they got me right. And Leonardo, the great thing was that Leonardo DiCaprio, or whatever it's called, was number 35.
Oh, right.
So, of course, for about a week, I went straight home and said to Lucy, my wife, you know, I'm the 33rd most handsome man. So you've got 1 month and a day, 32 days, and then every woman who reads Cosmo is going to come round here and want to go to bed with me. So, she had to put up with this big head for about a week, and then she just started roaring with laughter on the next Sunday morning, reading the paper, and there was an article by Julie Birchall saying what rubbish this poll was, and saying women choosing Harry Enfield is the equivalent of men choosing Pam Ayres. So she's been... I mean, I've nothing against Pam Ayres.
No, nor have I.
I'm sure she's a lovely lady, but I'm a lot more handsome than her. I think I am, anyway. I don't know, maybe I am, just like Pam Ayres. Anyway, she's been calling me Pam ever since.
When you were growing up, did you imagine you might be a sex symbol one day?
Oh, yes, definitely.
It was an ambition, was it?
Oh, yes. God, it was an ambition.
Was it?
God, well, it certainly was from the age of 13 when my bits dropped.
Yeah.
Until the day when I actually took the plunge, so to speak.
Yes.
You know, those...
adolescent days.
Yeah, the adolescent days.
Yes.
Which was actually 4 years between the things dropping and
you actually losing your virginity.
Yes, that's the word.
That's the word you're
I'm trying to think how to say it in an unrude way, that's it.
You're quite backward by today's standards, weren't you?
Yeah, I am backward. I'm handsome, but backward. But it was about 4 years, this horrible, horrible period where all I wanted to be was a sex symbol. But girls then just thought I was sweet.
Really?
They say, oh, you're so sweet. There's nothing worse in your teenager. Isn't he sweet? But I'm trying to write a film about that at the moment, which is...
Featuring Kevin and...
Kevin, my teenager.
Yeah.
Kevin and Perry.
I love Kevin.
Oh, do you?
Well, you see, I had a son, my middle boy, was exactly like Kevin.
Yeah.
I mean,
was too.
were you?
Yeah. With my dad, especially. Who, you know,
Your famous dad?
Yeah, I'm still like Kevin with him. You know, I see him on telly. Ugh, God. It's so embarrassing having my dad on telly. You know? It's just embarrassing. He's your dad.
But he's very good on telly.
Yeah, but he should be in a home by now. It's horrible.
That's a very ageist thing to say.
I know it is.
Mr. Kane and I might take this seriously.
Any other old man is like you and Mr. Kane. Okay, carry on with the rest of your lives. It's only my dad. It's only my dad. Just put him in a home. Get rid of him.
Well, what was it like? Because, I mean, your dad, of course, he was a civil servant.
He was indeed.
And you came from this very respectable family.
Very respectable,
Your granddad was a knight.
Yeah, and look what's happened to me now.
Well, I don't know about that, but there was this punk in the middle of all this.
Yeah.
It must have been a very, very uneasy relationship.
Yeah, I thought, you know, I was sort of 15 and all hormones, and I just wanted to be working class and on the dole, you know, like middle class boys all did, you know, all us punks were middle class, really.
That's right.
Yeah, and they hated me, they loathed me.
Who did?
I mean, my dad.
Oh, yeah.
Would you not gob on the terrace? You are so old. And he's the same now, he still won't let me gob on the terrace. He lets my son gob on the terrace, but not
Well,
me.
your son's allowed to. He's only, what, 1 year?
Yeah, he's 18 months.
That's
He's
right.
allowed
He
to.
can gob it. He wants to.
I know, I don't know whether but they are odd parents like that, because they always, you know, when you get to 13, 14, they say, you treat this place like a hotel. You know, you think, well, I always have. Don't you? When you're a child, you know, they make your meals, they make your bed, or they cook your, you know, they do whatever. When you're a baby, they wipe your bum. They don't do that when you're 14, do they?
Do you think you'll turn into your father, though, in that sense?
I already have.
Have you?
I think, well, it's one of those things, you know, whenever Lucy's annoyed with me, she always says, oh, you're becoming like your father, or my mother, or anyone. It's nothing, for some reason, it's always when I'm being pompous. And she loves my dad dearly, my wife. But whenever I'm being really pompous, she says, you're becoming like your father. So maybe I am.
What did they want you to be? What was the parental ambition for this punk who arrived in their midst? Like some alien?
I think probably at the time they wanted me to be dead.
Always given that.
But then after that.
After that, yes.
Yeah. But then after that, you know, anything, a lawyer, a doctor, something respectable.
But you know,
anything but a comedian, and still anything but a comedian. Still my mother secretly prays that I'll say, I'm jacking it all in and I'm going to become a lawyer.
She doesn't watch it. Does she like what she sees on television if she watches it?
No.
No?
She likes me doing Tony Blair when I do the St Albion thing.
Oh, it's the same.
But she doesn't like anything else I do, no.
Why does she like the Tony Blair? Does she not like Tony Blair? Is that why she likes your Tony Blair?
No, I don't think she likes Tony Blair, no. You know, not many old people I know do.
Do you like Tony Blair?
I like Tony Blair. I don't mind Tony Blair at all. Bless him. I met him once.
Yeah.
He's a right case. All right, H, how's it going? Who's you support? He nutted me. No, he's a very pleasant man.
That St. Albans, of course, was a very interesting departure in a sense.
Interesting, yeah.
Because although you are a satirist, I mean, that's the first time that you've really done political satire in a sense.
Yeah, very short. It's a private eye column, though.
Yes, I know. I know that. And Tony Blair was the vicar, the trendy vicar.
He was the vicar, yes, and there was Mandelson, and all those people I played. Mandelson.
And John Prescott, I love John Prescott.
John Prescott. Obviously very difficult for me to play someone as sort of big and bulky with such an attractive haircut as John Prescott.
Yes, yes.
Me being the 33rd most handsome man.
Of course.
But I was such a good actor, I managed it.
How did you do it? And Frank Dobson, he was there too, wasn't he?
Yeah, Frank. I always had his beard in. He's actually my MP.
Is he?
I think. Yeah, I don't know how he talks, but I had the beard, but I always had a bit of egg in it here. I don't know if he's ever had egg in his beard, but he looks like he'd have egg in his beard. Old Frank.
No, but you see,
he looks like he dribbles, doesn't he? I don't think he does, but he looks like it.
You think he's a dribbler?
I think he is.
All right. Well, going back, I mean, I just asked the questions on this programme.
He's my MP. I shouldn't say that, should I?
Of course, you're allowed to if you vote for him, and you're allowed to say...
Yeah, I voted for him. I can call him a dribbler.
Precisely. You've got a fairly uneasy relationship with the Labour Party, of course, haven't you?
Labour. Lovely Labour. Yeah.
Because you had a well-publicised argument at number 10 for all this Cool Britannia.
Oh, yes. Well, yes, I did. All I did was... that's when I met Tony Blair. What happened was... I went to this party, because it was free booze, at number 10, and Mandelson came up to me and said, I want a word with you. Why, what have you got against me or something? Because I'd written something in the press about how he should resign. It's a year ago. This is a year ago or something. And he said, well, what's all this about then? And I said, well, you should resign because they've just done a poll. Nobody likes you in the poll. And you're credited with getting Labour in by making them more popular. As you're not popular, you should go. And he just looked at me and sort of grinned. And it was rather embarrassing, really. He didn't say, well, you're a lousy comedian, which is what I wanted him to say to make me feel better about being so rude to him. So there was this sort of bit of an awkward silence. And I said, well, I'm going to get the Prime Minister to sack you. So I went off to the Prime Minister and said, you should sack him. And Tony Blair sort of looked at me. And I said, you've got to sack him because no one likes him and all this stuff. And then my wife kind of butted in. And I said, well, why have you butted in? She said, you're ranting at him in a drunken fashion. So I asked Tony, I said, sorry, am I ranting at you in this drunken fashion? To which he replied, you know, a lot of people think I'm just the man behind the dispatch box. And I went, which was a very Tony Blair type answer, you know. It was a straight question, am I drunk, am I ranting at you, or not? Answer, a lot of people think I'm just the man. Somehow it made me feel better. I know what he was trying to say. He was trying to say, don't worry, I'm a regular guy. It doesn't matter the fact that you're pissed out of your head, you know, and just about to punch me in the face.
So, you want a little more whoopee? Yeah, I'd like to see that.
This doesn't get any better than this.
You're unbelievable.
Oscar favourite Sister Act Whoopi Goldberg in a knockout network premiere.
My new coach.
Who is he?
Eddie.
Now she's the rookie in charge.
Would they shrink up in the water?
For the first hilarious time, Whoopi Goldberg in Eddie, Sunday 8:30 on 7.
And understand the breakthrough is near. Don't live in fear. There's a place where we can go. Don't give in. Don't let go. There's a place where life is strong. Don't give in. It won't be long.
When the Nissan Patrol was launched... This looks just like an ad for the Nissan Patrol, but it's not. It's a challenge. We challenge you to find a four-wheel drive that's better value for money. We challenge you to find a tougher, more reliable and more powerful four-wheel drive for the same price. We've issued the challenge, the Nissan Challenge. Take it up at your Nissan dealer.
Bridgestone invited Mr. and Mrs. Brock to help test their new tyres with Donuts technology. To make things fair, they decided that only Mrs. Brock's car would be fitted with new Donuts, and Mr. Brock would have to rely on his skill. As you can see, when it comes to stopping, skill has nothing to do with it. Donuts, unique to Bridgestone.
There's no stopping you, my love.
There's a place where life is strong. Don't give in. It won't be long. Ooh, come. Ooh, come. Ooh, come.
Waltzing Matilda, waltzing Matilda, who'll come waltzing Matilda with me.
Being Australian means helping others. It's in our hearts, in our blood. That's why every year we get behind the Salvation Army.
Who'll come waltzing, who'll come waltzing
The Salvos help those in need. Please dig deep for Red Shield 99.
Matilda with me.
Thank God for the Salvos.
Going back though to the time when your father and your parents had this ambition for you to be a lawyer or whatever, you'd already demonstrated some talent for acting, because I remember reading about when you were 12, you starred in a in a play in which you played the part of something called Obadiah Bobbleknob.
Obadiah Bobbleknob, The Thwarting of Baron Bolligrew.
That's right.
By Robert Bolt, which was the only time I'd been on stage before I started doing it professionally, really. And it was a school play, and this was an egg painter. He was an egg painter, and I just did it as Frank Spencer. Hello, oh Betty, you know, all the time, whatever it was, however Frank Spencer talked. And I got lots of laughs from the audience. I thought, this is great. So I'd go off stage after my scene, and I carry on doing it round the back over other people's lines. Woo, woo, you know, hey, damn it, whoopsie, or whatever. And kind of people carried on kind of laughing. I thought, this is great, very bad form. You're not supposed to talk off backstage, yell at the audience when there's people on stage talking. But it's the only time my dad has ever really liked a performance I've given. Afterwards, he was just roaring with laughter. He said, it's fantastic. We came out, and there were some parents behind us, and they said, aren't the school nice to let that mentally deficient boy go? And my dad was over the moon. He just thought it was the best compliment anyone had ever paid his son.
All this growing up, though, and observing and looking...
All this growing up, we all do it.
Well, the point is that you've utilised it in your act, haven't you? You've picked on the people that you met. I mean, when you were doing odd jobs on the Saturday, you're a milkman, when you worked in the shop and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But they've got some of the characters that you've invented and become part of the common currency, as I said in the introduction.
Part of the euro.
Part of the euro, yes.
Common currency.
That's right.
Boom, boom.
Do they have a life beyond television?
I'm doing a film.
Well,
I'm writing a film
yes.
for Kevin and Perry. Sort of like a Wayne's World film, only they're a bit younger.
Yes. Like
they're 14. And the idea is that they have 7 days to lose their virginity. Or they'll be virgins for life. Well, that's what they think in their heads. They find out what the average age is. It's 7 days until their birthday.
Right.
Then they think if they don't lose it by then, they'll be below average freaks, virgins for life. So it's like 7 days in this sort of struggle. And they go to Ibiza and they go clubbing and meet girls, and do they do it or don't they, you know? But it's been fun doing it. It's basically lots of things that I used to do with my friend Ted. We used to go on holiday and go to the beach. Very embarrassing now. We'd always come back with very red backs.
Why is that?
And we were both virgins. We were sort of 16 or something. Well, because there'd be all these beautiful girls on the beach. So we kind of kneel down like this and make a little hole in the sand. And then, you see, these lovely Swedish girls, all naked, so we're all going, and then we get hooked in. You couldn't get out. So,
oh, dearie me.
You come back with a red bag. So things like that, you know, it's going to be quite autobiographical.
Yes, and tasteful.
Very tasteful, yeah.
Your father will love it.
My father will hate it.
It's the health benefits that really matter. By increasing muscle strength through repetitive, non-impact exercise like the Orbitrek, you can substantially reduce your chances of getting osteoporosis, a condition associated with aging that causes bones to become brittle and often fracture.
People with osteoporosis need to exercise, but when they start to exercise, their bones are less dense, and therefore they're more susceptible to injuries. So the Orbitrek could eliminate these impact stresses on the bones, allow them to exercise and actually build bone and help solve osteoporosis with that.
Working out on the Orbitrek is even better than walking because there's absolutely no impact.
And if you really want to burn just your leg muscles, put the Orbitrek's handles in the stationary position and fly. This is a great sprinting exercise that combines fantastic form with rock-solid results.
As much as I like the upper body workout I get with the Orbitrek and the arms, I really enjoy putting them in the stationary position and just working my legs and really running. It just cuts the fat right off your body.
As a runner, the Orbitrek simulates the running motion more than any of the other machines that I have used. I've tried treadmills, but this eliminates the pounding of the treadmill, and yet it still simulates the running motion, whereas the Stepmaster or the stationary bikes don't.
The Orbitrek's a great machine, isn't it? But now let's talk about exercise bikes. Lots of people strain their backs because of the natural tendency to lean forward. But with the Orbitrek, there's no strain whatsoever. The up and over action is as natural for your body as walking, but without any impact. And you're standing in a normal, relaxed position.
And don't forget the air conditioning. The Orbitrek is the only elliptical exerciser that offers this terrific benefit. The wheel that produces elliptical pedal motion also creates a light, cooling breeze that keeps you from overheating. Thane engineers want you to stay comfortably cool from the beginning of your workout to the end.
It's convenient. I don't feel like I'm being hard on my body parts while I'm getting a great cardiovascular workout, upper body and lower body toning. I mean, how much more can you get?
Because of my knees, I really can't run and a little uncomfortable on both a treadmill or a bike. This allows me the chance to work out in as long a period and at whatever pace I want and burn off calories. When I get done, I really feel good because I know I've worked out, and then I can go have a nice meal.
The Orbitrek is a marvelous machine for people of our age because it has the variable resistance, and you can adjust it to whatever level of fitness you are when you start using it, and then gradually tighten up on the tension. It not only gets the upper body and the lower body, but it also gives you the aerobics, which is so important.
And no impact.
And no impact. Very important.
And this is high-quality equipment that you can just have in your home and work out when you have that quick 30 minutes that you can get your workout in without having to travel to the gym, finding a daycare. So I think it's just perfect, especially for mothers.
You can burn up to 722 calories an hour, and all without any harmful impact to your joints and your back.
Plus, it's a blast. Time really flies when you're on it.
It's sturdy, and it's lightweight, too. And when in place, it takes up less space than any other piece of elliptical equipment on the market.
I like the Orbitrek because it's so compact. I can take it to the living room, I can take it to the bedroom, I can even take it out to the patio. It's so easy to move.
I think it's great that the Orbitrek is so small and compact. I mean, you can store it anywhere. It's better than these other elliptical workout systems that they have. I mean, they're so big. Where can you store them? In your garage?
This is a really solid machine. It's gym quality. It's something you would find in the gym. It's solid. The construction's great. It's small. It's not big and bulky. You can move it around wherever you want it. It's a great machine.
The best news is that without sacrificing quality or safety, Thane International is offering the Orbitrek at a price that blows other elliptical exercisers on the market away. Burn fat and calories, tone and sculpt your muscles, improve your balance, and get the best cardiovascular workout of your life, all in one fabulous and fun machine.
For the up and over workout with all of the gain and none of the pain, all you have to do is order your Orbitrek now. Here's how.
Now you can burn fat faster than you ever dreamed possible.
While you get a total upper body workout, a total lower body workout, and a cardiovascular workout all at the same time.
With the natural elliptical motion and the dual direction workout of the Orbitrek.
You burn 5 times more calories than you can on a treadmill. Tone and sculpt sexy muscles without lifting weights. Boost your energy and have fun getting the body you want.
It's your fitness solution today. The stair climber is history.
The Orbitrek gives you 40% more butt toning action in less time.
Jettison that ancient stationary bike. You're sitting on your best asset.
With the Orbitrek, you get a great upper body, lower body and cardio workout all at the same time.
The treadmill is boring.
And running on it gives your joints a strike force impact of up to 5 times your body weight, which can cause knee and hip pain.
But the Orbitrek is fun.
You'll tone your thighs and hips 70% faster than on a treadmill, and you'll tone your arms and shoulders more than 20% more than on a rider.
You'll have to spend nearly an hour and a half on 4 different machines to get the total body workout you'll get on an Orbitrek in just 20 minutes.
Plus, the Orbitrek is the only machine that simulates natural motion and with no damaging impact.
Danos Direct now brings you the hottest health club machine in a surprisingly affordable package for only $48.30 per month. It's affordable. Orbitrek gives you more features than any other elliptical glider on the market.
Just look, the Orbitrek comes with an air breeze flywheel to help you keep cool and comfortable.
The micro-adjustable tension control lets you customize your workout, sprint freely, or simulate walking uphill. Forward action targets the thighs. Go backwards to target hips and bottom.
The arm bars adjust into 2 positions, workout mode, or quickly change them into stationary mode. The full function monitor keeps track of time, calories burned, miles and speed. And at just 1 metre long, it moves easily. And it's less than half the size of other bulky elliptical gliders.
Plus, it comes with Danos Direct's lifetime warranty. And it's built solid. Solid enough to withstand 140 kilos of pressure.
No other elliptical glider on the market has all the Orbitrek features at this low price.
We guarantee you'll boost your metabolism, burn fat fast and lose weight in just 10 days with your new Orbitrek, or just send it back for a full refund of the purchase price. Call right now and the exciting new Orbitrek will be sent reserved for you. And there's even more. By calling now, we'll also send you certified fitness trainer Jamie Gallo's new Orbitrek workout video to keep you motivated and burn fat faster.
So call now. Our operators are standing by to take your order.
The hottest health club machine at a surprisingly affordable package, Orbitrek. Just make 6 easy payments of $48.30 plus $39 postage and handling, or $289.80, and the Orbitrek is yours. Ring 1-800-808-938 now for Orbitrek. Pay by credit card and receive AM/FM stereo headphones absolutely free. Call Danos Direct now on 1-800-808-938 and order Orbitrek and get Danos Direct's 60-day money-back guarantee. Orbitrek for a total body workout in just 20 minutes.
Get the power of a pain-free workout with the Orbitrek. Thanks for watching. Order now.
I used to have to stand in line at the gym to get on the elliptical machine, but now that I have an Orbitrek at home, I can get on anytime I want.
The Orbitrek is everything they say and more, and I couldn't believe the price.
It's the most natural feeling workout I have ever experienced.
I love the Orbitrek. It's a great workout.
It's never too late to start exercising.
He's a traveling man.
Look at this country. You are gay.
With a one-way destination.
Hey, I think I hear a dingo eating your baby.
The Simpsons, Wednesday.
I'll tell you another little trick. When you're worrying, one of the ways that you can break that pattern is start saying the right thing out of your mouth. You can be thinking about one thing, but if you start talking about something else, it'll break that pattern and fill your mind full of something new.
Welcome to Life in the Word with conference host and Bible teacher Joyce Meyer, as she brings practical biblical principles that you can apply in your daily life. And now, here's Joyce.
Welcome to Life in the Word. I'm Joyce Meyer, and I'm excited about spending time with you today. We're going to get into a powerful subject today, the subject of the mind. The title of my teaching today is, Are You Thinking Too Much? You know, sometimes I think that's our biggest problem. We just sit around and think about things too much. We think too much about how people have hurt us, and we think too much about our problems, and we think too much about trying to find answers to our problems, and it just seems like we think too much about all the wrong things, and it doesn't leave us any time to think about the right things. So I believe today's program is going to be enlightening to you, and it's going to bring you up into a new place of freedom in your walk with God. God bless you as you receive the Word today. 4 years ago, Dave and I felt like that we were about to embark on the easiest, best, most restful year of our ministry since its inception. We had a large radio ministry, and it was at a point where it was paying for itself and doing well, and we were going around the country and having nice meetings. You know, we were having, you know, maybe attendance of 400 or 500 and nice little meetings, and we finally had a staff that was organized, and, you know, we had them taught, and we had just the right amount of space we needed building-wise, and you know, I mean, in the beginning, you got to teach people and train people and get used to each other and all kinds of stuff, but it was flowing, man. It was right. And so we were at a place now where we thought we were going to be able to cut our schedule back a little bit, and not travel quite as much, we had our plan. And one morning we were getting ready to go about our day. I was in one part of the house and Dave was in another part. And Dave had a visitation from God. You know, God doesn't always wait for an invitation. Sometimes he shows up when you least expect it and tells you something you're not sure you want to hear. And it turns your life upside down, and it don't take him very long to do it. That wind blows in, and all of a sudden, nothing is the same as it was 24 hours ago. And so God spoke to my husband. He said, well, first of all, he just began to show him the condition of the world, like from the heart of God. And Dave is not usually bent in this direction. He's not an emotional person at all. And he said when the Spirit of God began to show him this, he started to weep and sob uncontrollably. He just could feel the hurt of people and how lost they are and how confused they are and how the world is offering them all kinds of wrong answers. But because the church, in many instances, is not operating in the power of God, the church is giving them religious ideas but not the real answers to their problems. And then he said, God spoke to him and said, I want you to go on television. I've prepared you for this time. Everything else that you've done up until now has been preparation for you to go on television. Of course, when God gives you revelation, you see all kinds of things. And God was, I think, starting to put inklings in Dave's heart, because about a month prior to that, he went out and bought a television camera. And Dave never buys, neither one of us ever buy anything of that magnitude without discussing it with the other one. And he went out and bought this $20,000 television camera. And he said, we're going to start filming all your teachings. I said, what for? And he said, because God told me that once you preach these things, that they're lost if we don't start getting them on film. And I said, well, we've got the audio. He said, yeah, we've got the audio, but he said, it even comes across different when you can see it, because you're very animated in your teaching. And he said, we have got to get these on film. I said, well, what are we going to do with them? He said, I don't know. All I know is God said we got to get them on film. You see, so many times God gives us a part of something, but we don't have all the rest of it, and we don't want to do this part till God shows us what for. Well, why should I do that? And maybe God don't want to tell you why you should do that yet. Maybe he's not ready to unveil anything else to you yet. He just wants to see if you'll do this part before he tells you the next part that you're supposed to do. So, Dave didn't have too many what-abouts. He didn't talk himself out of it. He went and bought the television camera. I don't know. Maybe if Dave would not have bought the television camera, he would have not had the visitation from God. So he went and he bought that television camera, and they began to film some of my teachings. And to be honest with you, I thought it was a waste of time and money. But it's what the man wanted to do, so and I got kind of offended that he bought that camera without asking me. Then I had to beat off the spirit of offense, and try to get over being mad. And hallelujah, all those things we go through. And then God spoke to him about this television thing, and so Dave handles all the money at our ministry, and we didn't know what television cost, but we knew that it definitely wasn't cheap. And, we had enough money to do what we were doing, but we didn't have any left over to go buy TV equipment and that kind of stuff. And so Dave said all these things were going through my mind while God was speaking to me. And I'm sure it was like the devil sitting there saying, well, what about? And 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 what about? Everybody say we've got too many what-abouts. And he said God showed him, well, first of all, he said, well, what about the money? Where are we going to get the money for that? And he said God showed him a hand on a water faucet. And he said, I've got this turned up this far, and it pays for what you're doing. And if I turn it off, you won't be able to do what you're doing but a few days. And if I want you to do this television, all I got to do is turn it up, and everything you need will come in to do everything that I want you to do. And I'll tell you the truth, we didn't know what we needed. We didn't have the slightest idea what we needed. But I felt in my heart that we would need about $500,000 to buy TV equipment to get started. I mean, you know, we put some figures together from things people told us. So many cameras, this, that, editing equipment, so on and so forth. And so we wrote a letter to our partners and said, this is what God's told us to do. Some of you may, how many of you remember getting that? Any of you were partners with us? How many remember getting that? And so we wrote a letter to them and said, this is what God's told us to do, and we need your help. And we had almost to the penny $500,000 come in. And it was, I mean, it was enough to buy the equipment and get started, and it's a long story, but, you know, I mean, God's paid for everything. Now we're on 271 television stations in a period of 4 years. I mean, and God has got me on in places where you know, it's just like, God, I mean, I'm on VH1 every morning, preaching the gospel. I follow the Psychic Network. Yes. And I'm telling you what, when God wants you doing something, ain't no devil in hell's going to stop him. Nobody's going to stop him. Now, what if that morning when God was speaking to my husband, the whatabouts would have won out? You know what God told him that morning? You know, my husband is very obedient, but he's got a phlegmatic personality, and so he thinks things over more, and he waits on things more than I do, you know, and I'm like, it's God, let's do it. And he's like, well, let's make sure it's God, you know. And so God said something to him that morning that was necessary for that particular time, because God said to him, I'm giving you this opportunity, but if you let it pass you by, this opportunity will never pass your way again. And that caused him to move faster than what he normally would have in something that serious. And so I was getting ready to leave the house, and he said, I need to talk to you about something. And he had this look on his face, and I said, Dave, I got an appointment. He said, I don't care what you got. I need to talk to you. And so then he shared this thing with me, and I mean, from the minute he said it, it jumped off on me. And I mean, we just started making plans to go on, and we didn't have the slightest idea how to go on television. You don't understand. You're looking at an ex-housewife from Fenton, Missouri with a 12th grade education, and I'm preaching all over the world to millions of people every day. I mean, it's God. I mean, the eyes of God roam to and fro across the face of the earth, looking for someone in whom he might show himself strong, whose heart is perfect toward him. You don't have to have all the talent in the world. You just got to be willing to step out when God says step out, step back when he says step back, do what he says to do, when he says to do it, take a chance, not live in fear all your life, and not let the whatabouts drown you, but live in the will of God. What about this? And what about, and what about, and what about, and what about? This church here that we have, they own a television station, they own a radio station. There's all kinds of things that they're doing. I mean, they're reaching out to the poor and the needy and all kinds of stuff. And I'm telling you, they had to hear a few whatabouts. And to be honest with you, sometimes it just grieves me the number of things that could be accomplished in the kingdom if people would just move when God says move. Just do. And obviously you need to be sure that it's God. But you know, we didn't go get on 500 stations at one time and hope God would pay the bills. You know, when you're trying to find out if something is for sure God or not, then you know, we believed we heard from God that morning. So we sent out a flyer and the money came in. Now if I sent out the flyer and the money didn't come in, then, well, maybe I didn't hear from God. Or maybe it's the wrong timing, or maybe I got the wrong plan. But you know, there are certain things that God has to do for you if he wants you to do certain things. And so many people, they don't understand this balance between rebuking the devil and pressing in and backing off when it becomes obvious that it's really not God. And so a lot of people press into things that they need to just wait on, and then some people wait on things they need to press into. And what do you do? You say, well, how do I hear from God? Well, you take a step prayerfully. You keep, and see, God knows that, and he honors that. If you're willing to take those steps of faith, then God will make sure that you don't get in trouble. Don't be concerned if you don't know every single thing that you're supposed to do right now. Just do what you know to do. A lot of people wonder why they're not hearing from God. And God told me one time, why should I tell them anything else? They haven't done the last thing I told them to. Ooh. Can I tell you something? This room is full of people. You know that you haven't done the last thing God told you to do. It's not that you don't know what God said. It's just the whatabouts. Well, what about, and what about, and what about? I don't care how long you wait, there'll still be whatabouts. There will still be things that you don't have the answers to and that you don't know. Don't let opportunities pass you by. Exodus 14, or Exodus 4. Well, let's just start in verse 1. I'll read a little bit of this. This is another one of those things like Esther. You know, I hope you know enough of the story about Moses that you can kind of pick up with me here in the middle. But Moses had a call of God on his life, and he stepped out a little bit ahead of God. And he was actually called to deliver the Jewish people out of bondage in Egypt. And God had made arrangements. He'd put him in the right place, the right time, had been with him all of his life, and saved him from death as a child, and got him in the palace. And, you know, it's amazing how God works all of our lives getting us positioned. Positioned. It's amazing how God can have you just in that right place at just the right time. And we don't realize it, but He's been working behind the scenes all the time. You may feel like God's not working in your life, but I want to tell you God is working in your life. As long as you're believing, God is working. And He's heard your prayers, and He's trying to solve your problem. Just keep on believing, and don't go back to doubting. Amen? So, you know, God got Moses there in the right place at the right time, and he was feeling this thing, but he just got a little bit ahead of himself, like a lot of us do, and that's not the end of the world. You know, we just got to learn. And so he saw the oppression of some of his people, and he reached out and killed an Egyptian one day. And then the next day, he was going to do the same thing. And, you know, that's why God's got to stop us if we're full of ourselves, because if we get by with it once, we'll do it again. And so then the Egyptian said, well, I saw you kill this other Egyptian brother yesterday, and I guess now you're going to do the same thing to me. And then Moses, the Bible says that Moses knew that the thing was known, and so he fled to the wilderness. He fled out into the desert. And he lived out there 40 years. And, you know, even though maybe he didn't like the desert, eventually you get comfortable in places. And so he got comfortable out there. Now, he's walking around one day, and all of a sudden, God appears to him in a burning bush. And he breaks a revelation on him. I'm going to take you back to Egypt, and you are going to lead my people out of bondage. Now, here's Moses. Chapter 4, verse 1, and Moses answered, but... I mean, it's the same thing as what about? Just a different translation. Do you have any idea how the buts stop people? Same thing when the spies were sent into the promised land to spy out the land, to see if it was indeed a land that flowed with milk and honey. And they went in there and said all these things. Oh, yes, the land flows with milk and honey, and here's the fruit of it. And the fruit was so big they had to carry in a cluster of grapes on 2 poles with 2 men carrying them. Oh, yes, it's good in there. Yes, it's fruitful. Yes, it's just like God said. It's just like Moses prophesied. But there's giants in there, and what about the giants? Let me tell you something. There's always going to be what-abouts. It doesn't take any faith if there's no what-abouts. Trusting God requires unanswered questions. If you've got all the answers, there's no trust. But it's those things, that's what faith is for, the things we don't know, the things we don't see. The Bible says hope, which can be seen, is not hope. You don't need to hope for what you already see. Hallelujah. Moses said, but, behold, they will not believe me, or listen to and obey my voice, for they will say, the Lord has not appeared to you. So he was arguing with God. And then he kept making all kinds of excuses, just one excuse after another, after another, after another. Let's look at verse 10. And Moses said to the Lord, oh, Lord, I'm not eloquent enough. I'm not a man of words. I don't talk good. Neither before nor since you have spoken to your servant, for I am slow of speech, and I have a heavy and an awkward tongue. And the Lord said to him, Who has made man's mouth? Don't you think I know how you talk? I made your mouth. Hallelujah. I told God one time, well, I'm a woman. You know, because I'd had that junk put in my head for years. And you know, when God calls me, I mean, He called me. He anointed me, so I guess if He anointed me, then He must not mind if I preach, even though I've got a female body. Amen? We can't forget that Jesus set us free from all that stuff. He said there's neither male nor female, Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, but we're all one in Christ Jesus. He's a God of hearts. Hallelujah. And we won't get into all the things that Paul said about women being quiet in church, but if you really study them properly, there's an answer for all those things. Women were uneducated then. They didn't have any education, and men were looked at in a totally different position than women were, and women were sitting in the church hollering across the aisles because they all sat on, the women sat on one side, the men on the other, and they'd holler across the aisles at their husbands, asking them for interpretation of what was going on in the meeting, and Paul said, if you want to know anything, ask your own husband at home and keep quiet in the church. Hallelujah. And boy, has the devil ever used that one to shut up a whole bunch of women that have got the power of God on them and can help a lot of people. And I didn't just make that up. I mean, you can get good translations. I mean, I've got a Greek Hebrew Bible at home that's got a lot of footnotes in it, and some of the stuff that I just told you right there is in the footnotes of some of this Bible. It's just not something I concocted to get by with doing what I'm doing. Hallelujah. But you know, the point is when God wants to do something, He doesn't have to go around and get everybody's permission. And I'd heard all this stuff, you know, about how women weren't supposed to this and weren't supposed to that. And, you know, I was in circles that believed that, you know, that women shouldn't do this. And when God called me, you know, when He puts something in you, you have such a desire that you don't, you know, I wasn't thinking about all that. And it's a good thing I wasn't, because I was doing it for a while before people started telling me I couldn't.